Chapter 231. The chief commander of Crimson Tiger Troop. The alarm in the Crimson Tiger city blared till their ears hurt. The lights lit up the city, and large numbers of military martial warriors were sent out to search for the escapees. This was an important military city. No mishaps were allowed to happen. Any problem must be killed in the cradle. In a building in the middle of the city. Tap, tap, tap. A middle-aged man with a powerful and frightening aura strode into the office. Chief Commander, Chief Commander, Chief Commander. Everyone in the office stood up at once and saluted the guy. When they saw the middle-aged man's expression, they immediately got nervous. This man was the chief commander of the Crimson Tiger Troop, Xiao Nanfeng. Xiao Nanfeng looked around him and scanned everyone's faces. The general cloak behind him fluttered slightly even though there wasn't any wind. He sat on the host seat and opened his mouth to ask, "Can someone tell me how the prisoners managed to escape from prison?" Everyone kept as silent as a cold cicada. They lowered their heads. No one dared to speak. This was the domineering presence of a chief commander. "Wang Yong, speak." Xiao Nanfeng's gaze turned to a slightly plump man standing below him. Wang Yong was drenched in sweat, the muscles on his face trembling uncontrollably. He placed his feet together with a loud tap and saluted the chief commander. He said loudly, "I failed to fulfill my duty. Please punish me." Boom. The moment he finished speaking, the commander's force of presence, which felt like a huge mountain, bore down on him. Wang Yong's entire body bent over. His face was pale, and his legs kept shaking. Yet, Xiao Nanfeng had already shown him mercy. If not, Wang Yong would have been forced to kneel on the spot. He would have been greatly embarrassed in front of his comrades. At this moment, a man beside him stood up and said, "Chief Commander, the most important thing now is to catch the escapees. Why don't you give Wang Yong another chance and let him redeem himself?" The other officers agreed and helped to speak up for Wang Yong. Even if some of them had a bad relationship with Wang Yong, they would just keep quiet at moments like this. Framing your comrades was taboo in the military. Their actions had a strong effect on the chief commander's perception of them. "Wang Yong, I will give you one more chance," Xiao Nanfeng said calmly. "However, if you can't catch the fugitives, you don't have to come back." The overwhelming aura also disappeared with that sentence. He got up, turned around, and left. He came quickly and left quickly. He didn't stop at all. "Yes." Wang Yong replied loudly. He waited for Xiao Nanfeng to leave before he finally raised his head. He could feel that his back was drenched with cold sweat. "Old Chen, thank you." He turned and looked at the man who had helped him just now. "Hurry up and catch the fugitives. That's the crucial thing." The man waved his hand and replied, "Okay. If I manage to survive this ordeal, I will treat you to some good wine." Wang Yong rushed out hurriedly after he finished speaking. "Run." Wang Teng exchanged glances with his teammates. When they saw more and more military martial warriors moving towards this side of the city, they immediately made their decision. The lights had already lit up a huge patch of the city. Their concealing skill was useful when it was dark, but there was nowhere for them to hide in such a bright environment. Also, there were a huge number of military martial warriors searching for them with a fine comb. The only method was to run. They were already quite close to the back gate of the Crimson Tiger City. There was still a chance of survival if they forced their way through. They dashed towards the back gate. The elder didn't say anything. He just followed behind them in a relaxed manner. He seemed extremely carefree, as though he wasn't trying to escape. There they are. After passing through a street, a group of military martial warriors, who were patrolling around this area, saw Wang Teng and his friends. They shouted loudly, "Catch them, don't let them run away." A huge number of military martial warriors started surging towards the direction where Wang Teng and his teammates were escaping. "Damn it, we got discovered so quickly." The group's expressions were ugly. They had tried their best to choose the most secluded path. Yet, they still got noticed by a group of military martial warriors who suddenly appeared at the side of the street. They ran frantically. The streets of the Crimson Tiger City were all straight and simple. There were no complicated layouts like main roads and small alleys. Thus, no matter how secluded the path was, it was still easy to get spotted. Also, this was the headquarters of the Crimson Tiger Troop. They were at a numerical disadvantage. It only took a short moment before martial warriors started rushing over from all directions. "What should we do? We seem to be surrounded," Liu Yang asked as she ran with all her strength. "We have to fight." Lin Zhon gritted his teeth and said, "The people in front, you have been surrounded. Surrender quickly. If not, well, shoot." The people opposite them used the loudspeaker to speak to them. Wang Ting and his teammates didn't care about what he said. Shoot. Things had already reached this stage. Why would they be afraid of their shooting? There was no room for negotiations. Kill. The group roared in low voices before charging towards the military martial warriors in front. Force exploded from their bodies, forming airwaves in the surroundings. They seemed to have turned into rays of lights as they shot towards the military martial warriors in front. Although their weapons had been confiscated, they still had been placed in the prison. When they escaped from their cell, they took their weapons back. Boom. It was a heated battle. The military martial warriors didn't expect Wang Ting and his teammates to be so straightforward. The fugitives charged into their group without a shred of hesitation. For a moment, the group of martial warriors was in a state of frenzy. Even though they were holding heavy machine guns, they couldn't fire recklessly. On the other hand, Wang Ting and the others had more room to wiggle since they had fewer people. They shuttled back and forth through the crowd and dealt powerful blows at the military martial warriors. There were many military martial warriors, but most of them were low-ranked. Their battle experience wasn't weak, but that depended on who they were facing. Lin Zhon and his teammates were all 3-star soldier level and above. When they dashed into a group of 1-star and 2-star soldier level martial warriors, they were like tigers entering a herd of sheep. The military martial warriors got thrown out in the air, and screams of agony were heard continuously. Leave. Lin Zhon and others didn't continue fighting for long. They found their direction and charged towards their target like a sharp blade piercing through the air. It had only been a few seconds since they managed to get rid of the first group of martial warriors. However, loud explosions could already be heard behind them. More than 10 compact SUVs raced on the streets. They were closing in on the fugitives quickly. Bang, bang, bang. A few gunshots rang out like loud drums. Lin Zhon and the others hurled themselves on the ground at the side in a hurry. Slash. Yang Jinyu was a step slower, so she got hit on her arm. Blood splattered on the road. "Little you!" Yang Jinming screamed. He dashed to her side immediately and pulled her up to evade the bullets flying towards them. Wang Ting and Liu Yang rolled on the ground and took out their rune guns. They started firing behind them. They were extremely skilled in gun skills, especially Wang Ting. He used his spiritual power along with gun kung fu. Almost all his bullets hit their targets. This brat. When the elder saw this scene, his eyes shimmered. Wang Ting saw a military martial warrior falling after he got hit by his bullet. The compact SUV he was driving flipped sideways and was about to smash into the building at the side. At that moment, an idea flashed in his mind. He moved his body and caught up with the SUV that was about to crash into the building. He controlled the SUV and then hurled himself over the car. He ran towards the military martial warriors on the other side. He passed by a military martial warrior almost instantly. He grabbed the other party's throat with one hand and threw him out of the car. The driverless SUV flipped on the ground. "Snatch the car!" Wang Ting shouted. His teammates' eyes lit up. Lin Zhon was closer, so he rushed towards the SUV that was lying sideways on the ground. Liu Yang had also hit a few drivers, giving the Yang siblings an opportunity to snatch a car. They sped towards the back of the city. Chapter 232, Force Wings, the attack of a 5-star soldier-level martial warrior. Wang Ting and his gang drove the compact SUV they had snatched and sped towards the back of the Crimson Tiger City. The military martial warriors chased them closely behind. Gunshots were heard everywhere. The two parties were engaged in an intense battle. Many military martial warriors died in front of them, leaving attribute bubbles for Wang Ting to pick up. Fire Force *10 blank attribute *8 Earth Force *8 Gun Skill *12 Water Force *6 Gun Skill *8 A large number of attribute bubbles entered his pocket. Wang Teng didn't have the time to look at them carefully, but in the chaos, his body trembled uncontrollably. Fire Force, March 2000, 4-star. His Fire Force got leveled up at this moment and went straight to 4-star. The Fire Force was his most powerful attribute, to begin with. Hence, it was reasonable that it got upgraded first. The fourth force nucleus on Wang Ting's spine lit up, and the scorching fiery red force settled down in there. Wang Ting immediately felt the changes in his body. He felt stronger. A hot breath spurted out of his mouth. This feels amazing. Come, let's turn this place upside down. Wang Ting's eyes were shining like bulbs. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, he roared in his heart and diverted force into the rune mechanism in the vehicle. He accelerated once again. Swoosh, swoosh. Many figures were closing in on them quickly. Their aura was frightening. When they ran, the sound of air splitting apart could be heard. The 4-star soldier-level martial warriors of the troop were here. Leave first. Lin Zhon's expression changed slightly. He slowed down his vehicle voluntarily. One 4-star soldier-level martial warrior leaped high into the air and slashed the battle blade in his hand at Lin Zhon. Kill. Come on. Lin Zhon roared at the top of his lungs. He didn't show any mercy. This wasn't a time for him to hold back. He congregated his force on his battle axes and threw them at his opponent aggressively. Boom. The two of them collided. The martial warrior was forced to stop and even got thrown back. Lin Zhon was in no better state. His entire body, along with his vehicle, flew out and collapsed on the ground. Hurry up and leave. Wang Teng shouted. He swung the battle sword in his hand, and a ray of fiery red glow was marked on the ground. Boom. In an instant, raging flames lit up the sky. A fire wall laid horizontally between the military martial warriors and Wang Teng's teammates. Lin Zhon shook his head and crawled up from the ground. He hurriedly got into his vehicle and caught up with Liu Yang and the others. The 4-star soldier-level martial warrior was blocked by the fire wall for some time. Their expressions turned ugly as they chased after the escapees again. Chase. We must stop those people today. If not, the Crimson Tiger troop will be greatly humiliated. The martial warriors yelled, and their speed increased exponentially. It was like they were given nitrous injections. You're really not giving up? Wang Teng frowned. His face was icy and grave. A sword presence was brewing on his battle sword. He added all the blank attributes he had accumulated so far on the sword presence of his Fire Kirin sword skill. Half-formed. First level. Second level. The sword presence leapt increasing until it stopped at the third level. The sword presence had reached the height of its power. When the 4-star soldier-level military martial warriors were less than 30 meters away from him, the sword presence was released in an instant. Fire Kirin sword skill. Third level sword presence. Boom. The fire spread everywhere. A huge fiery red sword light shot straight into the sky and almost lit up the entire night sky. Go. When this attack came, the 5 4-star soldier-level martial warriors were dumbfounded. Their expressions changed entirely. The sword light came down on them within a split second. They had no path of escape. Force poured out of their bodies as they executed their battle techniques to resist the sword light. But, splurt. Blood spurted out of their mouths as they were forced to retreat. They were all seriously injured. One sword attack against 5 4-star soldier-level martial warriors. Wang Ting had just become a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior not long ago, so this battle power was already astonishing. Who is he? Has definitely a genius to have such abilities at this young age. This genius should be the honor of our race. Why was he locked up in prison? The few of them exchanged glances with one another. Suddenly, the sound of air splitting apart was heard behind them. A ray of light shot toward them from afar and landed in front of everyone. The pair of shimmering wings unfolded and flapped gently behind the person who arrived. You didn't manage to stop them? No. The other party is very strong. The few of them shook their heads. Do they have a 5-star soldier-level martial warrior among them? The person who came frowned and asked. No. The strongest person should be at the 4-star soldier level. However, he is very powerful. As for the one that injured us, he is just a young man, the few of them replied. What? The person was shocked. The back gate of the Crimson Tiger City was right in front of them. Lin Zhon and his teammates started beaming with delight. We're almost there. Everyone, just a bit more, and we'll be free. Lin Zhon was elated. The other team members felt invigorated. Wang Ting was at the back, trying to catch up with them. When he held back the 4-star soldier-level martial warriors just now, he had picked up another round of attribute bubbles. Earth Force, February 2000, 4-star, his Earth Force was next to advance after his Fire Force. Within a short span of 1 hour, 2 of the force limits that he had trouble breaking through were broken consecutively. But this happened under such dire circumstances. Wang Ting didn't know whether he should laugh or cry. However, it was a good thing for him. The stronger his ability, the higher the chances of them escaping. Stay. At this moment, a loud roar rang out from the sky. A figure was flying towards them in the middle of the sky. The force wings were exceptionally eye-catching, everyone's expression changed, and the hope in their hearts hit rock bottom. Force wings. 5-star soldier level. It's him. Wang Ting immediately recognized the man. It was the man with a crew cut who gave the order to lock them in prison. Boom. The man with a crew cut threw a violent punch at them. The strong and frightening Earth Force gathered in one spot like a meteorite smashing down. The elder was prepared to act, but when he saw Wang Ting from the corner of his eyes, his face twitched a little. He stopped what he was doing. The elder saw a huge cannon suddenly appearing in Wang Ting's hand. He poured his fire force into the cannon frantically. Fire God Cannon. At this moment, a complicated fiery red pattern lit up on the surface of the Fire God Cannon. As more and more fire force got injected into the cannon, the scarlet glow got thicker and thicker. A few moments later, the Fire God Cannon finished charging. The man with a crew cut was less than 10 meters away on top of everyone. Wang Ting activated the firing runes without any hesitation. An extremely thick blood-red glow spurted out of the Fire God Cannon, leaving behind a red trail. It shot right up into the air and collided with the other party's attack. Boom! The violent explosion echoed throughout the entire city. Oh my, we're saved. Lin Zhon and the others were blown away. They couldn't describe the astonishment they felt in their hearts. On the other side, Wang Ting didn't waste any time. He fired another shot at the gate and started his engine. He took the lead in charging towards the gate. Stop daydreaming. Hurry and leave. Boom. The Fire God Cannon blew the gate away. The military martial warriors standing around the gate didn't have time to evade, so many of them got injured and killed. Under Wang Ting's lead, everyone fled into the smoke and dust. The explosion in the air finally dissipated, revealing the disheveled figure of the man with a crew cut. He had lost a huge chunk of his force wings from the explosion. Many parts of his body were burnt too. His head was covered with dust, and ashes and traces of blood could be seen at the edge of his lips. The military martial warriors that were a little late to arrive at the scene were flabbergasted when they saw this. Their jaws almost dropped to the floor, and they felt their throats turning dry. They couldn't say a single word. This powerful 5-star soldier-level martial warrior got injured so seriously. This was incredible. Chase after them. The man's gaze was cold. There were no emotions on his face as he gave his order sternly. Chapter 233, Escape. At this moment, Wang Tang and his teammates had already arrived outside the Crimson Tiger City. Gunshots were heard continuously, and all forms of force rays rained down on them from every direction. Wang Tang and his teammates drove their vehicles and sped through the bullet rain and force explosions. Fortunately, the reaction speed of martial warriors was swift, so they managed to evade the dangers, albeit from a hair's breadth. However, the impact of the force explosions formed many airwaves that cut their skin like flying daggers. In an instant, they were covered with blood. Just like what they expected, there weren't many garrisons and sentry posts at the back of the city. Also, The military martial warriors from other places couldn't rush over in time. Their best hope was to stop Wang Ting and his teammates in the city. Unfortunately, they had underestimated Wang Teng's ability. The fugitives had escaped outside the city, so the difficulty of catching them now increased tremendously. Wang Teng and the others' bodies were covered with blood, but they finally managed to leave the Crimson Tiger city far behind. Not long after they escaped, many heavy armor vehicles and compact SUVs shot out of the Crimson Tiger city to chase after Wang Teng. In the city, Fire God Cannon. The man with a crew cut had an eerie expression. He was still recovering from his injuries at the same spot. He admitted that he had underestimated Wang Teng and his teammates, resulting in some losses from the Fire God Cannon. A few rays of light fell from the sky at this moment. There were no wings on the person. He was walking in the air. Only a few prisoners managed to escape. How can we trouble senior officers like you? The expression of the man with a crew cut changed slightly, and he saluted the newcomers immediately. Li Tonghai from Cell 99 has escaped, one of the senior officers said. Let's not waste any time. Li Gang, which direction did they go? The other senior officer was more impatient. He asked the man with a crew cut directly. Northwest, the man with a crew cut, called Li Gang, replied hurriedly. Well, leave first. Catch up with us quickly. The moment he finished speaking, they turned into a flash of light and soared into the sky, disappearing into the distance. Li Gang looked in the direction where they vanished. A hint of envy flashed past his eyes. Drop your wings and walk in the air. This was the mark of a 7-star soldier level martial warrior and above. He was only at 5-star soldier level. There was still a considerable distance between him and that stage. He refocused on healing his wounds. Then, a few more military martial warriors flapped their wings and flew over. Ha ha ha, Li Gang, why are you in such a bedraggled state? A laughter was heard from above him. Someone was gloating over his plight. Go away. Li Gang was already frustrated. When he heard his comrades teasing him, he glared at them and shouted. Ha ha ha, Li Gang, be quick. Stop dawdling. The people went away quickly. Li Gang's expression changed a few times. He spread out his wings behind his back. They had been repaired completely. He chased after his comrades. There was a vast chain of mountains behind the Crimson Tiger city. Wang Teng and his teammates had charged in that direction. Where are we going now? Lin Zhon's face was a little pale as he asked. After crossing this chain of mountains, we will head west and return to Yong City. Wang Ting confirmed the direction before continuing in a low voice. The Crimson Tiger Troop is very powerful. We might not be able to return to Earth if we go to other places. However, I had the pleasure of meeting General Shun from Yong City once. We will only have a chance if we go to Yong City. The others nodded when they heard this. They had no objections. Little brat, let's part here, the elder who had been sitting behind Lin Zhon all this while said abruptly. Elder, where are you going? Wang Teng couldn't help but ask. Anywhere. We will meet again if we are fated. The elder's body slowly floated into the air. Then, he glanced behind him as a force of presence exploded from his body. He found his direction and turned into a flash of light. Remember, my name is Li Tonghai. His voice echoed beside Wang Teng's ears. The elder is indeed a powerful warrior. Lin Zhon's eyes widened in surprise. He looked at the elder who suddenly flew away and felt a little fortunate. Had he really provoked the other party, he wouldn't have been able to withstand a single slap from him with his current ability. Wang Teng raised his head and looked up. He saw multiple streams of light shooting out of the Crimson Tiger city. At first, they were heading in their direction, but now, they changed their target and flew towards the direction where the elder left. Li Tonghai. Wang Teng's eyes flickered. He repeated the name in his heart. He attracted the attention of the powerful warriors in Crimson Tiger City, Liu Yang said joyfully. However, their expressions changed almost immediately. After the first few streams of light, multiple streams of light leaped out of the Crimson Tiger City again and flew in their direction. More powerful warriors are coming. Let's leave quickly. They dived into the forest and traveled through it quickly. After some time, Wang Tung frowned uncontrollably and said, "We can't continue like this. It's too slow, and the target is too obvious." The pursuing troops were getting closer and closer. 5-star soldier-level martial warriors were able to fly in the air. Hence, they were extremely quick. "What should we do?" asked Lin Zhon. "Abandon the vehicle." Wang Tung hesitated before saying, "Abandon the vehicle? Are you sure?" Lin Zhon's expression changed slightly. Based on their current state, abandoning the vehicle wasn't a good option. Little Yu is injured. Chapter 234, Dominance Blade Li Hei. 2 days later, they finally saw the Yong city some distance away. During these 2 days, Wang Teng and his teammates remained hidden to evade the military martial warriors. They took a long detour before they finally came back to Yong city. "They know where we came from, so they might try to intercept us outside the city gates," Lin Zhon said. "That is highly possible." Wang Teng nodded. "Is the Crimson Tiger troop able to cover the sky with one hand?" Liu Yang said furiously. "Let's contact Jisin Martial House first and ask them to come out and fetch us," Wang Teng contemplated before replying. Lin Zhon nodded. He opened the communication function on his wristwatch and sent a signal. The wristwatch was a rune item and could be used as a communication device in the Xingwu continent. However, there was one con when using it here. If the distance was too much, the other party wouldn't be able to receive the signal. This was why they couldn't contact Jisin Martial House in the past 2 days. Sometime later, Lin Zhon smiled brightly. "I've contacted them. They will come out and fetch us very soon." "That's great. I don't believe that the Crimson Tiger troop can disregard our Jisin Martial House," Yang Jinming said. "We can't rely solely on Jisin Martial House to solve this matter." Wang Ting shook his head. Lin Zhon and the others had grave expressions on their faces. They also knew that this matter was a little troublesome. After all, the military had sent a large number of advanced-rank martial warriors to chase them. Also, they had released Li Tonghai. That old fellow was locked in cell 99. He was not an ordinary prisoner. Although they were forced to make the decision because they had no other choice, the Crimson Tiger troop wouldn't care about their reason. In summary, if their support wasn't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to escape this ordeal. Half an hour later, a large group of martial warriors from Jisin Martial House walked out of the city. The passers-by around them hurriedly parted to the sides to make way for them. "What's going on? Is the Jisin Martial House having an excursion? Are you blind? Can't you see how fierce they looked? Do they look like they are going for an excursion? It looks like something big is about to go down." Everyone started gossiping in low voices. A few martial warriors from the Crimson Tiger troop also saw this scene. They were hiding in the shadows. They asked Li Gang uncontrollably, "Lieutenant Li, what should we do? It looks like they are back." Li Gang's expression was extremely ugly. He said in a low voice, "Let's go. Let's see if the Jisin Martial House dares to hinder the Crimson Tiger's operation." Li Gang walked out with many martial warriors from the Crimson Tiger troop. They walked towards the people from Jisin Martial House without backing down. A muscular man from the Jisin Martial House's side walked forward and asked Li Gang, "How do I address you?" "Li Gang, Crimson Tiger troop, Lieutenant." Lieutenant Li said coldly. "Chen Tian, guardian of Jisin Martial House." The muscular man continued, "May I know what crime my Jisin Martial House martial warriors have committed that caused you to mobilize so many people? Complying on the surface but opposing in heart, delaying the battle and causing the death of many of my military martial warriors, escaping from prison thereafter and releasing a major criminal, are these crimes enough?" Li Gang replied coldly. The people around them went into an uproar. The martial warriors from Jisin Martial House committed such huge crimes. This is big news. If they don't take care of this matter properly, the reputation of Jisin Martial House will be greatly affected. Chen Tian's expression changed slightly. However, he still braced himself and said, "This is just your side of the story. I will have to confirm if this is the truth." "Why will I lie to you?" Li Gang flew into a rage. His aura erupted and surged towards Chen Tian. Chen Tian wasn't one to take it lying down. His aura exploded too. It was as powerful as Li Gang. He said, "Lieutenant Li, hold your horses. Let's call the people concerned and talk things out." "All right, call them over." Li Gang's gaze flickered as he answered. Chen Tian sent a message through his wristwatch. Then, he waited. "Let's go. Guardian Chen Tian asked us to go over," Lin Zhon said after he received the message. Wang Teng and the others nodded. They ran towards the city gate. "They are here." Chen Tian smiled slightly as he saw the figures rushing towards them quickly. When Wang Teng and the others got closer, Chen Tian frowned as he looked at them. "Why are you in this state?" "Never mind. Please explain what happened." "Take them down." Before he could finish speaking, Li Gang gave his order. The martial warriors under him raised their rune guns immediately and aimed at Wang Teng and his teammates. Lin Zhon and the others turned pale in shock. They didn't expect Li Gang to act so recklessly. "Lieutenant Li, what is the meaning of this?" Chen Tian shouted as his expression changed. "Nothing. If they have anything to say, they can say it back at the Crimson Tiger Troop's headquarters," Li Gang said expressionlessly. "Is the Crimson Tiger Troop always so overbearing?" Chen Tian's face was black. He said coldly, "They are our Jisin martial house's martial warriors. Don't even think of taking them away before things get clear. Take them. If anyone dares to resist, kill them." Li Gang ignored him and gave his order once again. The military martial warriors surrounded Wang Teng and his teammates. Their rune guns were aimed at the vital points of their bodies. At such a close distance, it was very hard to evade the bullets. "This is too much." Chen Tian glared at them indignantly. The aura around him exploded, and he charged towards the military martial warriors who were surrounding Wang Teng and his friends. Boom! Li Gang blocked his path. When their fists collided, it was like bombs were going off in the air. Wang Teng and the others saw them start their fight, so they dashed towards the military martial warriors too. Fut! However, the instant they took a step forward, they were seriously injured. Blood spurted out of their mouths, and they flew back. 5-star soldier level. Wang Teng's pupils froze. He saw the man who had pushed them back easily. A 5-star soldier-level martial warrior was hiding among the military martial warriors. "Are you going to surrender, or do you need me to capture you personally?" The 5-star soldier-level martial warrior looked at Wang Ting with a mocking smile. Wang Ting didn't say anything. His shooting star spiral was getting restless. It was on the verge of flying out. He didn't mind killing a 5-star soldier-level martial warrior today. "It looks like I have to do it personally." Sigh. Youngsters refuse to be convinced unless they are faced with grim reality. The 5-star soldier-level martial warrior shook his head. Suddenly, he disappeared on the spot. Bang! The next moment, he appeared again, but he didn't manage to catch Wang Teng. Instead, he was sent flying backward at an even faster speed. "Young man, didn't your chief commander tell you that your blade should be facing the other races, not one of your kind?" An old voice sounded behind Wang Teng. "Uncle He." Wang Teng's expression changed. "Uncle He." Chen Tian, Lin Zhon, and the others called out in pleasant surprise. The elder who suddenly appeared was Uncle He from Jisin Martial House. "How do I address you?" Li Gang asked sternly when he saw the elder. "Li He, the Xingwu Continent commanding guardian of Jisin Martial House." Uncle He smiled and replied calmly. "Commanding guardian." Li Gang's expression changed. He knew that the Xingwu Continent commanding guardians of the top 3 martial arts academies were at least 6-star soldier-level martial warriors. If so, this ordinary-looking old man was actually a 6-star soldier-level martial warrior. Maybe, he was stronger than that. "Wait, Li He? You are that Li He?" Li Gang seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed entirely. "Oh, it has been so many years, yet someone still remembers an old fellow like me," Li He said in astonishment. In the past, on the Guangdong battlefield, the 9-star soldier-level dominance blade Li He executed a general stage martial warrior from the devil race. Li Gang emphasized every single word. "Old memories are nothing worth mentioning." Li He placed his hands behind his hunched back and replied calmly. The jaws of Lin Zhon and his teammates almost touched the floor. Wang Ting was stunned for a long time. He was flabbergasted. Oh my God! Dominance Blade. A 9-star soldier-level martial warrior who killed a general stage martial warrior from the devil race. Uncle Hay had such a glorious achievement. Who would think that this ordinary-looking Uncle Hay would be such a formidable martial warrior? It was unimaginable. It has been 10 years, but the aura of Dominance Blade hasn't changed. A voice rang out from far away in the sky. It seemed to be echoing beside everyone's ear. 3 black dots appeared on the horizon. Within a few breaths, they appeared in front of everyone and landed gently. Walking in the air. 7-star soldier level. The crowd was dumbfounded and exclaimed uncontrollably. You're speaking too highly of me. Why do you need to make a trip here? It's just a small quibble between the younger generations, Li Hei said. We don't have a choice. This isn't a small matter. Our chief commander personally asked about this, so we have to make a trip personally. One of the men smiled and replied. At this moment, a military martial warrior from Yong City ran out and said, I've just received this news. Our General Shun invites everyone to the military camp. He says that we are all on the same side, so we should sit down and talk things out. There's no need to fight. I didn't think that we would alert General Shun. Lead the way. It's indeed not appropriate to talk about this outside. The man gave a bitter smile as he replied. Chapter 235, Interrogation. In the military department of Yong City. Everyone was brought to a meeting room. Please wait for a moment. General Shun will be here momentarily. The military officer went out of the room. The atmosphere in the meeting room was a little tense. The members of Jisin Martial House sat on one side while the martial warriors of the Crimson Tiger Troop sat on the other. The segregation was clear. There was no nonsense spoken. Not long after, footsteps were heard outside the door. The person who came in first was General Shun, whom Wang Ting had met once before. General Shun. The 7-star martial warriors from the Crimson Tiger Troop stood up quickly and greeted him respectfully. Have a seat, have a seat. General Shun smiled and pressed his hand down. General Shun. On the Jisin Martial House's side, Li Hei got up and greeted the general too. Old Li, it has been a while since we met. We are both in Yong City, but you've never visited me, General Shun smiled and said. I don't dare to disturb you. You are busy with military affairs, Li Hei replied. Seriously. General Shun looked at the lethargic Li Hei and felt pity in his heart. He sat on the host's seat and glanced around him. He then said, sit down. Since everyone is here, we can lay everything on the table and talk things out. Li Gang, you can do the explanation, a 7-star martial warrior from the Crimson Tiger Troop said. Yes. Li Gang immediately stood up and said, a few days ago, my men found signs of a dark apparition on a mountain. We sent people to investigate and noticed that there was an ore mine there. I didn't want to alert the Xingwu continent, so I only sent my subordinate, Liu Huaixin, and a small team under him to execute this mission. They might have noticed that there were many dark apparitions in that place. There was a lack of manpower on their end, so they temporarily enlisted the Wolf Fang team and the Tiger Warrior team, who were around the area. But the Tiger Warrior team disobeyed my subordinate's commands. They didn't follow Liu Huixin's order to attack the dark apparition. Instead, they led the dark apparition to my military martial warriors and the Wolf Fang team. When both sides got heavily wounded, they grabbed the opportunity and killed the dark apparition. My men and the Wolf Fang team suffered huge losses. On the other hand, the Tiger Warrior team remained intact. They are all standing here properly in front of us. At this point, General Shun looked at Wang Teng and his teammates uncontrollably. He frowned slightly. If this was true, the Tiger Warrior team did commit a huge crime. Their actions were loathing, so what the Crimson Tiger Troop did was reasonable. On the other hand, Li Hei's expression remained the same. He didn't seem worried at all. Li Gang continued, in a fit of anger, I locked them up and waited for the higher authorities to confirm their crimes before giving them their punishment. Yet, they chose to escape from prison. If they weren't guilty, why did they need to escape? The Crimson Tiger Troop suffered heavy losses when we chased them and tried to capture them back. They even released a major criminal. General Shun, Don't you think that they deserve to die after hearing all their crimes? Li Gang, mind your words. The 7-star martial warrior from the Crimson Tiger troop shouted. I'm sorry, I was too agitated, Li Gang said hurriedly. He knew that he had made an indiscreet remark. General Shen waved his hand. He said to the Tiger warrior team, is he telling the truth? Lin Zhon and his teammates were infuriated when they heard Li Gang twisting the facts. Wang Teng, Lin Zhon, if you have anything to say, say it. If you are framed, our Jisin martial house won't let it slide. Even if I can't handle it, the president will stand up for you, Li He said calmly. Bullshit, how can I frame them? Li Gang was boiling in anger. Even though the person in front of him was the once famous dominance blade Li He, he still glared straight at him. Enough, let them speak, the 7-star martial warrior said. Wang Teng sneered. He took a step forward and said, General Shen, Uncle He, you will know whether he's speaking the truth after you listen to this recording. He tapped his wristwatch, and a conversation started playing from it. I have already sent someone to investigate the 3 paths. High-level dark apparitions are guarding the hole on the left. The Tiger warrior team's fate is grim. We will go and kill the dark apparitions after they exhaust the dark apparitions' power. Haha, the Tiger warrior team will become history after today. Squad leader Liu, I will remember your favor. There's no news from the Tiger warrior team until now. It looks like they have met some trouble. The high-level dark apparition didn't charge out, so this means they didn't fail completely. It's time for us to enter. Why don't we wait a while longer? Let's wait until the dark apparition kills them before we act. Let's go in first. We will decide if we should act based on the situation. You and Liu Huaixin are the ones behind this, right? So what if we are? Don't look as though you aren't afraid of death. I hate this kind of person. You are going to die, yet you're still acting. Despicable. Sigh, Leader Lin, you're right. I am despicable. In your next life, remember not to offend a despicable person, especially one that has wealth and power. After he played the recording, Wang Teng retreated to Lin Zhon's side without saying another word. The 3 7-star soldier-level martial warriors from the Crimson Tiger troop frowned slightly. Impressive. Li He scoffed. He was seething with anger. General Shen was indignant too. He scolded loudly, what are you doing? Huh? What is this? Li Gang's expression underwent a huge change. His color turned extremely pale, and he felt the blood in his body rushing into his head. He staggered uncontrollably and shouted in disbelief, this is impossible. How is it impossible? Wang Teng asked coldly, did you see it personally? Or did you hear it personally? If you weren't so opinionated and didn't even give us a chance to explain, would things have reached this state? If you hadn't believed the one-sided story, if you didn't give us the death penalty because of what Liu Huaixin said, would we have to escape from prison? If we don't escape, are we supposed to wait for our deaths in the cell? The series of questions forced Li Gang back. His face gradually changed from white to red and then to purple-black. He felt a strong sense of humiliation. How dare you? When the 7-star martial warrior from the Crimson Tiger troop saw this scene, he shouted. His aura exploded at the same time. Me? Wang Teng didn't back down. He glared at the other party coldly. Am I being impudent, or did you go overboard? A fierce and powerful aura surged behind Wang Teng. The force slashed towards the 7-star soldier-level martial warrior like a sharp blade with killing intent. Do you think that I won't dare to harm you? Li He said gravely. The 7-star martial warrior's face turned pale. But he immediately got angry from embarrassment. Li He, how dare you oppose our Crimson Tiger troop? So what if I do? I've fought on the battlefield with death all around me. When have I ever been afraid? There seemed to be an overpowering dominance hiding in Li He's aged body. He wasn't afraid of anything. The colors of the military martial warriors' faces changed again and again. His overwhelming aura was starting to scare them. Chapter 236, I will get justice for you. Enough. General Shen bellowed. Where do you think this is? How old are you? Why do you still speak without thinking? The 7-star martial warrior from the Crimson Tiger Troop snorted and kept quiet. He sat down. General Shin, you be the judge. Who's right and who's wrong? Li He asked. The matter is obvious. Liu Huaixin from the Crimson Tiger Troop and the Wolf Fang team framed the Tiger Warrior team. Li Gang neglected his duties and believed his subordinate without evidence. This was the cause of all the grave consequences that followed, General Shin said. That's impossible. Liu Huaixin will not lie to me. He doesn't have the guts to lie to me. The Tiger Warrior team must have forged the recording, Liu Huaixin suddenly cried. General Shin frowned unconsciously. Shut up. The 7-star martial warrior from the Crimson Tiger Troop yelled, Is it already not embarrassing enough for you? He turned his head immediately and said to General Shin, This matter implicates our officers, so I will need to go back and confirm the truth. I'll let our chief commander make the final decision. Are you planning to walk away now that you're in the wrong? Li He mocked. Li He, don't go overboard. The 7-star martial warrior flared up instantly. All right, old Li, let it go. The Crimson Tiger Troop might be in the wrong, but you don't have to fight to the death. This isn't a small matter, so it should be investigated thoroughly. I believe that the Crimson Tiger Troop will give you a satisfying answer. General Shin felt helpless too. This wasn't an issue that could be explained with a few sentences. He could only gloss over the conflict. Your Tiger Warrior team released a major criminal, so you will have to give us an answer for that. The 7-star martial warrior from the Crimson Tiger Troop scoffed and flicked his sleeve. He left with his comrades and Li Gang, who seemed to have lost his wits. Sigh, look at how complicated things got. General Shin sighed and shook his head. General Shin, thank you. We will leave first, Li He got up and said. General Shin replied, You don't have to be so polite. I didn't do anything. Without you, the Crimson Tiger Troop wouldn't have spoken to us so politely. Li He thanked the general once again. Then, he left with Wang Teng and his teammates. On the way back, Li He said to Lin Zhon and the others, You don't have to worry. The Jisin Martial House will not take things lying down. Thank you, Uncle He, Lin Zhon said gratefully. Honestly, in front of a powerful organization like the Crimson Tiger Troop, Lin Zhon and his team members had no confidence at all. They were fortunate enough to remain alive this time. Thus, when Li He promised to give them justice, they had nothing to feel unsatisfied about. Li He waved his hand and smiled. How did you escape and come back? I'm extremely curious. Lin Zhon told him about their daring escape. However, he hid the fact that Wang Ting had spiritual power. After all, he had reminded him beforehand regarding this matter. He didn't want too many people to know. This time, Lin Zhon and his friends had relied on Wang Teng to stay alive. They weren't just grateful towards him. Instead, they treated him as one of their own. Thus, they wouldn't reveal this secret to anyone. After hearing Lin Zhon and the others explaining what happened, Li He was astounded. It's surprising that you possess such ability at this young age. Wang Teng remained humble. Li He smiled. He didn't probe further. As someone who had experienced mountains of corpses and seas of blood, he had seen too many geniuses. He had even killed many of these geniuses. Wang Teng's ability had indeed surprised him, but it wasn't enough for him to kick up a fuss. Also, grooming talents wasn't in his job description. He was too lazy to care about it either. Someone from the Jisin Martial House would take care of it. Everyone went back to the Yong City Jisin Martial House branch to hand over their mission. Then, they prepared to go back to Earth and recuperate. All of them had suffered many injuries while they were on the run. They would need at least half a month to get back in tip-top condition. After passing through the dimensional rift, everyone felt as if a century had passed. Every time I come back from the Xingwu continent, I will feel fortunate to be alive. This time, the feeling is exceptionally strong, Lin Zhon exclaimed. Wang Teng felt emotional too. His understanding of the martial warrior's world was getting deeper with every one of his trips. Leader, let's part here. I will go back to school, Wang Teng said. His body was riddled with injuries. If he went home like this, his parents would worry. In school, He could use his school credits to buy all sorts of healing medicine. It was much more convenient. There were 3 more days of holiday, so many students hadn't returned to school yet. No one would disturb him there. Going back to school was the best choice. All right. Keep in touch, Lin Zhon said. Wang Teng nodded. He sat in his car and left. He has great potential. Our team will not be able to keep him for long, Yang Jinming said. Yeah. Lin Zhon and the others sighed. Wang Teng went back to school. When he entered the main gate, he greeted the guard. You're back. Huh? Why are you injured so badly? The guard frowned and asked. It's nothing. An accident happened, but it's already solved. Wang Ting shook his head. He didn't explain to the guard. Uncle, I'm a little dirty, so I will go and take a bath first. I'll chat with you another time. All right, go quickly. The guard shook his head as he watched Wang Teng walking away. Wang Teng went to the logistics department and exchanged his school credits for 2 bottles of healing medicine, one for internal and one for external usage. He spent 300 credits in total. His heart ached for the loss of points. Then, he went back to his dormitory. He had defeated a few top 100 students, but he didn't change dormitories with them. He continued to stay in section 3 room number 1. After all, he was going to challenge all of them one by one. It would be troublesome for him to change dormitories every time he defeated someone. Thus, he decided to wait until he challenged the number 1 senior. Wang Teng took his clothes and headed to the bathroom. After undressing, he opened the shower. Cold water splashed down from his head. The wounds on his body hurt slightly as the cold water flowed past them. The muscles on his face twitched in pain. The blood and dirt flowed down along with the water. 10 minutes later, he finished his bath. He dried his hair and walked out of the bathroom. He took out the medicine and applied it to his wounds. Then, he bandaged them up. A few moments later, a bandage monster appeared freshly out of the oven. Will people think him a pervert? Wang Ting smiled bitterly as he looked in the mirror. It was getting late, and he was also exhausted. When he finally got to relax, he laid on the bed and slept soundly. The next day, it was already past 11 a.m. when he woke up. His stomach was growling in protest. I shall go to the cafeteria to eat first. Just when he was about to leave his room, he noticed a few messages on his wristwatch. They were all sent by Dan Taixian. She already knew that he was back. However, Wang Ting was curious. Why didn't she go out during the National Day holiday? Did she stay in her room all the time? The first message was sent at 8 a.m. Come to my place. 9 a.m. Why aren't you here? 10 a.m. My stupid disciple, if you don't come soon, you are dead. At this point, cold sweat was starting to appear on his forehead. He had a bad premonition. He hurriedly jumped down from the bed and changed his clothes. He then dashed out of his room. I wonder if I can get a free meal today. Wang Ting touched his stomach as he ran towards Dan Taixuan's house. Honestly, he had been eyeing Dan Taixuan's force dishes for a long time. They were made by a force chef master, so normal people wouldn't be able to taste them. But, shouldn't he think of how to protect his life first? Why was he still thinking of food? When he reached Dan Taixuan's place, Wang Ting paused to catch his breath. He placed a fawning but reserved smile on his face and pressed the doorbell. As the door opened, Dan Taixuan's lazy and playful voice floated out. My stupid disciple, you've only been out for a few days, yet you dare to ignore my message already. However, when she saw Wang Ting's appearance, she couldn't help but chuckle. How did you end up in this state? Don't mention it. I was unlucky. Wang Ting changed into his slippers and closed the door. He explained what happened briefly, but suddenly, he noticed that there was no sound behind him. He turned around and saw Dan Taixian squinting at him. She was giving off a frightening aura. I'm hungry. Do you have anything to eat? Wang Ting felt that something huge was about to happen, so he hurriedly changed the topic. At first, he wanted to use Dan Taixian to seek justice for himself. However, since General Shun and Uncle He had spoken up for him and solved the matter, there was no need to bring out his powerful support anymore. Stop playing dumb. This is an important matter. How dare you keep me in the dark? Do you still regard me as your master? Dan Taixian said with a stern face. Although Wang Ting explained light-heartedly, she clearly knew what a military troop was like. She could imagine the dangers he had experienced there. Don't get angry, don't get angry. The Jisin Martial House has already helped me. There's no need for you to show your face. Wang Ting smiled in embarrassment. Go away. I am different from the Jisin Martial House. They might have helped you to solve the matter, but that doesn't mean that I should remain silent and let them bully my disciple, Dan Taixian said furiously. Wang Ting didn't expect such a big reaction from her. He didn't know what to say. Follow me. Dan Taixian got up directly without any hesitation. Where are we going? Wang Ting asked curiously. I will get justice for you. Dan Taixian grabbed Wang Ting's shoulder, and they appeared at the door in a split second. The next second, they changed into a rainbow and shot up into the sky. I will let everyone know that no one can bully my disciple. Dan Taixian passed through the dimensional rift with Wang Ting and arrived at the Xingwu continent. They changed into a rainbow again and shot towards the horizon. This aura, it's her. In the Yong City's military camp, General Shen's face turned pale from fear. He flew into the air and looked at the rainbow in the distance. He was flabbergasted. There's another person with her. It looks like Wang Ting. That direction, the Crimson Tiger Troop is in trouble. In the Yong City branch of Jisin Martial House, Li Hei stood on the roof of the central building and sniggered as he looked into the sky. I didn't know that fellow had such powerful support. Interesting. This is so interesting. Crimson Tiger City. 2 hours later, Wang Ting returned to this place, but, this time, it was different. A roar echoed through the air above the Crimson Tiger City. It spread throughout the city. Xiao Nanfeng, get out here. Chapter 237, Crazy Woman. Xiao Nanfeng, get out here. Dan Taixuan's voice reverberated throughout the entire Crimson Tiger City. Everyone was appalled as they looked up. Who is this? How dare she come to the Crimson Tiger Troop and call their chief commander's name directly? She even asked him to get out there. Who on earth is so audacious? Many figures shot into the air from the military camp below, accompanied with angry howls. How dare you? Impudent! How dare you cause trouble here? These figures either had wings on their backs or were walking in the air. They were 5-star soldier level and above martial warriors. Their auras pervaded the air and surged towards the offender. Go away. Dan Taixian furrowed her beautiful brows. Her red lips moved slightly, and sound waves bombarded the air. Boom. Boundless pressure crashed into the powerful martial warriors from the Crimson Tiger Troop like a vast sea. Their faces turned pale as they retreated uncontrollably. So powerful. Who on earth is she? Some people tumbled to the ground like shooting stars before they could see Dan Taixuan's face clearly. Only a few 7-star and 8-star soldier-level martial warriors managed to stabilize their bodies forcefully after plunging a few meters down. Why is she here? They finally recognized Dan Taixian. They were dumbfounded, and their faces turned white in fear. Suddenly, another domineering aura erupted on the ground. It rapidly neared them. Dan Taixian, why are you running wild in my military camp? The chief commander of the Crimson Tiger Troop appeared instantly in front of everyone with a grim expression. What am I doing here? Dan Taixian replied fiercely, you injured my disciple, yet you're asking me what I'm doing here. Everyone finally saw Wang Ting, who was standing beside Dan Taixian. Wang Ting was at a loss. Dan Taixian did tell him that she was going to seek justice for him, but he felt a little extra currently. He didn't have the power to speak in front of these bosses. They seemed to have ignored his presence altogether. Undeniably, Dan Taixian was too eye-catching. Everyone's gaze was attracted to her. However, it still felt a little irritating to be treated as a backdrop. Xiao Nanfeng didn't expect Dan Taixian to have a disciple. After all, she never planned to have one. He was a little astounded, but he felt confused too. He frowned and asked, your disciple is injured, but what does that have to do with me? He didn't recognize Wang Ting. The 3 7-star soldier-level martial warriors standing behind Xiao Nanfeng were the ones who appeared in Yong City. They recognized Wang Ting, So they hurriedly flew towards Xiao Nanfeng and whispered into his ears. Xiao Nanfeng turned unhappy when he heard their explanation. He said, "I've already understood what happened. My subordinates did make mistakes, but your disciple isn't entirely innocent. I will take care of my 2 subordinates myself. As for your disciple, I will forget about what he did. Let's put an end to this." "Bullshit." Dan Taixian cursed immediately. "If your subordinates didn't frame my disciple, nothing would have happened. How can my disciple get injured by your men for no reason?" Xiao Nanfeng couldn't control his emotions when he heard Dan Taixian humiliating him in front of so many subordinates. He bellowed angrily, "Dan Taixian, don't go overboard. Do you think that I'm afraid of you? Come. Let's cut the nonsense and have a battle. Let's see if I cripple you first, or will you kill me first?" While speaking, her entire body had already disappeared. The next second, she appeared above Xiao Nanfeng's head with a long sword in her hands. The blade gave off a sharp and glaring sword glow as it shot towards Xiao Nanfeng. "You crazy woman." Xiao Nanfeng's expression changed slightly. He didn't think that Dan Taixian would attack him without any considerations. At their level, every single move they made was frighteningly powerful. The consequences of a battle were horrifying. But there was no time for him to make any considerations. Dan Taixuan's attack was right in front of his eyes. The sword glow was so glaring that it hurt his eyes. Xiao Nanfeng didn't dare to underestimate her attack. A pair of black 8-sided maces appeared on his palms. The 2 started fighting without any more fanfare. At the side, Wang Ting was sent to the ground by a gentle force. He raised his head and felt a little worried. The other party was the chief commander of the Crimson Tiger Troop. His ability must be top-notch. He wondered if Dan Taixian could beat him. In the air, the 2 parties collided a few hundred times within a few seconds. The people at the scene could only see the lingering shadows of the 2 martial warriors intertwining continuously. Massive explosions rang through the air, and every single attack caused the air around them to erupt. It was exceptionally petrifying. Xiao Nanfeng was afraid of damaging the Crimson Tiger City, so he purposely shifted the battleground away from the city. Hence, the poor mountains and forest were the ones to suffer the wrath of their battle. Wang Ting saw a large and deep pit appearing in the wilderness from afar. Even worse, a single strike from them caused an entire mountain to explode. Boom! Sometime later, a figure flew out at a fast speed and smashed into the body of a mountain. "Chief Commander!" The martial warriors from the Crimson Tiger Troop cried out in alarm. Their expressions changed. On the other hand, Wang Ting heaved a sigh of relief. Good. Dan Taixian might be a little unreasonable and fierce, but she was powerful enough. Even the chief commander of the Crimson Tiger Troop wasn't her match. At this moment, he had a clearer understanding of his master's ability. Powerful. She was indeed very powerful. The main thing was, when these 2 formidable warriors were fighting, Wang Ting saw many large attribute bubbles dropping and floating in the distance. "Oh my god, these are attribute bubbles from general stage martial warriors." Wang Ting was a little excited. He immediately used his spiritual power to pull those attribute bubbles over. He picked them up. Wind Force *485 Metal Force *360 Fire Force *620. This was an astonishing number of force attribute. Wang Ting was dazzled. All he could say was, as expected of general stage martial warriors. They dropped so many force attributes during a casual bout. In the battle just now, Dan Taixian used 2 forces, 1 green and 1 gold. Thus, without a doubt, the wind force and the metal force came from her. Thinking about it, when Dan Taixian tested his ability back then, she had used the same 2 forces. Wang Ting already knew that Dan Taixian was a wind and metal double-element martial warrior, so he wasn't shocked. But this was a huge surprise for him. Especially the wind force, which was much rarer. He had only managed to get to 2-star soldier level after killing the Gale Mantis in the past. He didn't expect to advance another level so quickly. Wind force, 6-1000, 3-star, after adding the 360 points of metal force, His metal force finally advanced from 3-star to 4-star. Metal force, 82,000, 4-star. The fire force came from Xiao Nanfeng. This chief commander from the Crimson Tiger Troop might have suffered in the hands of Dan Taixian, but he wasn't someone a nobody like Wang Ting could underestimate. The fire force he dropped allowed Wang Ting's fire force to rise exponentially. Fire force, 625 2000, 4-star. His ability skyrocketed, dissipating the frustration in Wang Teng's heart a little. Chapter 238, Daylight Robbery. Xiao Nanfeng flew out from the sunken pit on the mountain. His clothes were torn and tattered, and his hair was in a mess. He looked a little disheveled. Xiao Nanfeng, do you still want to fight? Dan Taixian was itching to have a go. She hadn't fought to her heart's content yet. Actually, none of them were seriously fighting. They were the top-notch battle power of the country. If they really fought to the death, it would be the country's loss, no matter who died. Dan Taixian might be unreasonable and rash, but as someone who had reached this status, she wasn't brainless. She wouldn't kill Xiao Nanfeng. She only threatened him because she wanted to take revenge for Wang Teng. Xiao Nanfeng almost cursed out loud. His face was black as he said gravely, "What on earth do you want?" "I've already said that I'm seeking justice for my disciple." Dan Taixian pouted her lips unwillingly. "You can be direct and tell me what compensation you want." Xiao Nanfeng took a deep breath. "First, hand over the 2 culprits. I will lock them in the cells of my Black Sparrow military camp. Next time, when another war breaks out, they can atone for their crime by gaining merits." Dan Taixian was straightforward. "Okay." Xiao Nanfeng nodded expressionlessly. "Oh right, there's another person called Yarrow something, right?" Dan Taixian pondered for a while, but she couldn't remember Yarrow Jun's name. Yarrow Jun. Wang Teng was speechless. He had no choice but to remind her. "Yes, pass that Yarrow Jun to me too," Dan Taixian continued. "I'm not able to do that. He has already left. If you catch him, help me punish him too." The moment Yarrow Jun was mentioned, Xiao Nanfeng felt hatred rising in his heart. If that Yarrow Jun hadn't caused trouble, all this wouldn't have happened. He even caused him to suffer such great humiliation. "Nonsense, if you want to catch him yourself. I won't run errands for you," Dan Taixian rebutted without giving him any face at all. "If he's not around, it's fine. I heard that you found an ore mine this time. My disciple contributed greatly to this mission and even killed a high-level dark apparition. My Black Sparrow troop will take half of the ore mine. Also, you have to pass us the corpse of the high-level dark apparition." Dan Taixian, this is daylight robbery. Xiao Nanfeng wanted to vomit blood. The veins on his face kept bulging. "Sigh, you managed to see right through me. This is indeed daylight robbery. I won't leave until you agree. I will beat you up in front of your subordinates every day." Dan Taixian threatened him directly. "You." Xiao Nanfeng felt extremely frustrated. He glared at Dan Taixian and took a deep breath. Then, he growled, "All right, I admit defeat this time. You can have half of the ore mine, and the corpse of the high-level dark apparition will be yours too." Xiao Nanfeng didn't want to see Dan Taixian again. He immediately asked someone to bring Liu Huaixin and Li Gang over. The 2 of them were wearing rune handcuffs. They were prisoners now. "Disciple, I will hand these 2 over to you. You can do whatever you want to them." Dan Taixian didn't even look at the duo. Instead, she waved her hand and asked Wang Ting to take care of them himself. Liu Huaixin and Li Gang felt extremely embarrassed. They had always been in a high position. With the Crimson Tiger Troop supporting them, they had been smug and haughty. They could frame and lock others up without a reason. However, they were prisoners now. Their future was destroyed, and they couldn't control their lives anymore. Wang Teng glanced at them, then ignored them. The 2 of them didn't possess any more threats to him. After losing the protection of the Crimson Tiger Troop, they were nothing. Even if Li Gang was a 5-star soldier-level martial warrior, Wang Teng didn't care. Was a 5-soldier-level martial warrior very powerful? With his overall battle power, he might be able to kill a 5-star soldier-level martial warrior. Liu Huaixin regretted his actions wholeheartedly. Had he known this would happen, he wouldn't have cooperated with Yarrow Jun and tricked Wang Teng. But there was no medicine for regrets in the world. If there was, please give him an entire bottle. This was what Liu Huaixin was thinking now. After some time, the corpse of the high-level dark apparition was also brought over. Dan Taixuan's gaze landed on it as she sized it up with interest. It's a high-level dark apparition from the Blood Tribe. I shall send it back and let those men in white coats examine this fellow. High-level dark apparition corpses are very hard to get. I have never seen one so intact. There is great value in studying this corpse. It will be good if we can find its weakness. Dan Taixuan thought to herself. This is the joint mining contract I've just come up with. After you sign it, you can disappear from my sight, Xiao Nanfeng said with disdain as he threw a contract at Dan Taixuan. Dan Taixuan didn't mind. She signed the contract without reading it carefully. She believed that Xiao Nanfeng wouldn't dare to play any tricks. Send someone to bring these two people and the corpse of the high-level dark apparition to the Black Sparrow troop. I will make a move first, Dan Taixuan said. After she finished, she pulled Wang Ting and soared into the sky. She disappeared on the horizon in a blink of an eye. Xiao Nanfeng stood on the spot with a black face. The martial warriors around him didn't dare to move any closer. They felt that if they went to provoke their chief commander now, they would most likely die a terrible death. General stage martial warriors' speed was incredible. Wang Ting even felt that he had broken through the sound barrier. However, Dan Taixuan protected his body with force, so he didn't feel the pressure. After some time, Wang Teng and Dan Taixuan returned to school. Stay for dinner, Dan Taixuan said to Wang Teng after she called someone to prepare her dinner. She lazily laid on the sofa as though nothing had happened. Wang Ting had been busy the entire afternoon, so he didn't eat or drink anything. He was already famished. Only an idiot wouldn't accept a ready-made meal. He sat down on the sofa without any worry and swallowed a mouth of saliva secretly. He was waiting for dinner to start. What did you learn from the trip today? Dan Taixuan asked abruptly. Wang Ting's heart shuddered. He said sternly, I am too weak. It's good that you have such enlightenment. The trip wasn't in vain. Dan Taixuan nodded and continued, you're indeed talented, but there are many talented people in the world. However, not many of them became truly formidable warriors. If you are strong enough to look down on everything, such things should never happen. Even if it did, you would be able to seek justice for yourself without relying on other people. Hence, all in all, you're too weak. Wang Teng nodded. He agreed with Dan Taixuan. She was powerful enough, so the chief commander of the Crimson Tiger Troop and other strong warriors couldn't do anything to her. Even if they were infuriated, they had to swallow their anger. He felt envious and wanted to be like her. Do you want to know why I'm so powerful? Dan Taixuan smiled and asked. Wang Ting looked at her curiously. Was she asking him to compliment her? He hesitated for a moment and decided to go with the flow. He coughed awkwardly and said, Master, you're beautiful. Talented. Bullshit. Wang Ting. Chapter 239, Sweet Talk and Counting His Gains. Why are you so strong then? Asked Wang Teng speechlessly. That's because, from the moment I started my martial warrior career, I chose the formidable path. Dan Taixuan glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and replied calmly. The formidable path. Wang Teng almost choked on his own saliva. Oh my God, is my master spouting nonsense? You don't believe me? Dan Taixuan asked. How is that possible? Master, you're so magnificent and talented. I can tell that your talent is invincible in the universe. Wang Teng laughed awkwardly. Dan Taixuan enjoyed Wang Teng's flattery. She accepted his praises readily before continuing. I know you don't believe me, but I have to tell you that I have never suffered a defeat ever since I became a martial warrior. I'm not just invincible. I can even kill enemies at a higher level than me. You might be able to do that too. There are numerous talents in the world, and some of them can indeed do this. However, I have never heard of anyone that can kill opponents with a higher level at any stage of their journey. Wang Teng turned serious. At first, he thought that Dan Taixuan was just boasting, but gradually, he noticed that Dan Taixuan's tone was too composed. She seemed to be stating the truth, not persuading someone to believe it. This mentality proved that she wasn't making a casual remark. She was honestly invincible at her level and could even kill martial warriors at a higher stage compared to her. No wonder the tough Xiao Nanfeng wasn't her match. How did I manage to remain invincible? Dan Taixuan answered her own question. First, you need to integrate your spirit, qi, and essence to form the force of invincibility. With this force of invincibility, you will then be able to blaze your way through all manners of obstacles and defeat countless talents in the field. You will become the real unbeatable warrior and progress to the top level quickly. Wang Ting immediately registered profound respect for his master. The image of his master was becoming better and mightier in his heart. What do you think? My stupid disciple, do you want to try your master's formidable path? Dan Taixuan asked with a smile. She felt a little proud when she saw Wang Ting's reverent expression. Yes. I want to walk the formidable path too, Wang Ting nodded and replied. Good, I have high hopes for you. Dan Taixuan nodded in satisfaction. But, in her heart, she heaved a sigh of relief. Talking nonsense with a straight face was so difficult. At this moment, the doorbell rang, breaking their conversation. The food should be here. Open the door. All right. Wang Teng ran to open the door when he learned that the force dishes were here. The person outside the door was the fatty he saw last time. Wang Teng knew from Dan Taixuan that this fatty was a force chef master. Thus, he immediately gave an amiable and gentle smile. Hello, did you come to send food to my master? Yes. The fatty outside the door was stunned. You can pass it to me. Thank you so much. The force dishes you make are delicious. Wang Teng praised him sincerely. Oh, thank you. Wait, the principal is your master? The fatty asked curiously after he realized what Wang Teng had said and felt astounded. Is there a problem? Wang Teng asked. No. I didn't expect the principal to have a disciple. You are really young and promising, the fatty commented. Thank you. Brother, you are a force chef master. You are even more amazing. The two of them started complimenting each other just like that. A Roland for an Oliver, a well-matched contest. The atmosphere was harmonious. The fatty only realized what he was doing after the door closed. Why did he talk to someone he didn't know for so long? What are you up to now? Dan Taixuan felt puzzled when she saw Wang Ting chatting with the fatty for a long time. Nothing. I just want to keep an amicable relationship with him so that I will have good food in the future, Wang Ting said. TSK, as long as you're powerful enough, you will be able to eat all kinds of good food, Dan Taixuan said with contempt. Time to eat. Wang Ting laughed. He didn't mind her master's comment. He rubbed his hands and opened the lunchboxes. When he placed the dishes on the table, the fragrant smell wafted into his nose. This time, Dan Taixuan had ordered 2 servings of food. It was enough for them to fill up their stomach. Delicious. More than 10 minutes later, Wang Teng laid on the sofa and gave a satisfied burp. Look at you. Dan Taixuan rolled her eyes and kicked him. Go back to your room after you've finished eating. Don't run around for the next few days. Heal your body properly and wait for the lessons to start. Sure. I will leave immediately. Wang Teng got up. Oh right, the benefits that we asked for from the Crimson Tiger Troop. It's useless for you to take the high-level Dark Apparitions Corps, so I will pass it to the Black Sparrow Troop for research. As for the ore mine, you can't swallow it either. I can give you other benefits in exchange. Is there anything you want? Dan Taixuan asked. Wang Teng had never thought about this. Dan Taixuan was the one who asked for all these things from the Crimson Tiger Troop. It had nothing to do with him. But, since Dan Taixuan mentioned it, Wang Teng thought of something. My family is preparing to enter the military Dan medicine and weapons industry. We need to get a license, Wang Teng smiled and said. That's simple. I will inform the related parties when needed, Dan Taixuan replied. Wang Teng thanked her hurriedly. It might be a simple task for Dan Taixuan, but it wasn't easy for them. After bidding farewell to Dan Taixuan, Wang Teng went back to his dormitory. The moment he stepped into the house, a black shadow swooped down from the roof. What the F***? K. He hurriedly stretched out his hand to catch it. It was the little crow. This little creature had just learned how to fly, or more accurately, it was halfway through learning. Now that he thought about it, the little crow had suffered so much when it followed him to the Xingwu continent this time, especially when he was escaping from prison and the pursuit of the Crimson Tiger martial warriors. It was stuffed in his bag most of the time and almost got claustrophobia because of this. That was if birds could get this illness. Wang Teng placed the little crow on the ground and fed it some star beast meat. Then, he allowed it to stumble and flap its wings in the room. It kept bumping into the furniture. He walked into his bedroom and laid on the bed. He silently counted the gains for this trip. The greatest benefit was undoubtedly the increase in his levels. Currently, his fire force, metal force, and earth force had reached 4-star soldier level. Overall, he wasn't much weaker than a 5-star soldier level martial warrior. Also, his dark force and wind force had reached 3-star soldier level too. They had jumped 2 levels, from 1-star to 3-star. Mind you, these 2 forces were rare, so it was harder to increase their levels. He was lucky enough to be able to climb 2 stages up in one leap. Besides these, Wang Ting also received 3 battle techniques: Wave Invisibility, Berserk, and Bewitch. Wave Invisibility was a concealment skill. Berserk was an amplification skill, while Bewitch was a support skill. All of them had their pros and uniqueness. They were all exceptional battle techniques. It was hard to find ways to get one of them, but Wang Teng got his hands on all 3 at once. He could only clap his hands and applaud the system. His spirit had also increased tremendously. He was halfway through his spiritual realm state, so his spiritual power had increased many times. If not, he wouldn't have been able to kill that high-level dark apparition. These were all his personal gains in terms of ability. Besides, the dwarfs gave them rewards and offered their friendship. Overall, the harvest was amazing. Chapter 240. The Yarrow family wants to reconcile. Wang Teng led a peaceful life for a few days. He spent most of his time recovering from his injury. If he had nothing to do, he would go to the actual combat training building to pick up attributes. Although it was the holiday, some students didn't go home. They continued to work hard in their cultivation. What was one thing that could make you fall into despair? When you thought that the more talented people were having fun and enjoying themselves, but then you realized that they were working harder than you. Wang Teng, who was strolling in the gravity room, saw a familiar figure. Bailey. Brother Ting. When Bailey Qingfeng heard the voice, he turned around. He was startled upon seeing Wang Ting. He said in surprise, Why are you in this state?" "Oh, I accidentally injured myself during my mission." Wang Ting lowered his head and looked at the bandages on his body. He didn't explain in detail and just answered the question casually. Actually, the injuries on his body were mostly healed. The medicine provided by the school was very effective. Scabs had already formed on his wounds. After applying the medication one more time, his injuries would probably heal completely. Besides, they were just external injuries. It was nothing serious. Even if he suffered a serious injury, he would heal quickly with the help of high-quality spiritual dance. This was why alchemy had a higher status than modern medicine in the current society. Normally, bone injuries would require at least 3 months to heal completely. But, to an alchemist, one spiritual dan down your throat and he guaranteed that you would be alive and kicking in 5 days. Force injuries could only be treated by spiritual dans. Modern medicine was helpless in front of it. However, never look down on the intelligence of human beings. After integrating alchemy and rune skills, modern medicine had been progressing rapidly. In the future, there might be cross-generation high-quality medical equipment like the ones in science fiction movies. At that time, the advanced medical industry would start blossoming. The world outside is indeed full of danger. Bailey Qingfeng squinted slightly when he heard Wang Teng's reply. The muscles on his body also tensed up. Wang Ting had interacted with Bailey Qingfeng for a long time, so he understood him quite well. When he saw his reaction, he immediately knew what he was thinking. Wang Teng felt a little speechless. But, after pondering about it, there was nothing wrong with being cautious. The world outside was indeed dangerous. Look, he almost couldn't come back alive. Thus, being a cautious and brave warrior was a good choice. Brother Teng, you are able to execute missions already. I'm envious of you, Bailey Qingfeng said. You should be able to become a martial warrior soon. At that time, you can claim missions too, Wang Teng said. Just a little bit more, Bailey Qingfeng nodded and said. All the best. I will make a move first. I won't disturb your training anymore, Wang Teng said. Okay. Besides picking up attributes in the actual combat training building, Wang Teng would go to the stadium and walk his his little crow. A bandaged monster walking with a fat little crow in the stadium, it became a beautiful scenery of the school. On the last day of the holiday, Wang Teng woke up in the morning and realized that the scabs on his body had dropped. He didn't need to bandage his wounds anymore. I should go back home in case my parents worry about me. Wang Teng finished his breakfast and left the school. A black sedan was parked outside the school gates. When Wang Teng stepped out, the eyes of the man who kept watching the entrance of the school lit up. He immediately walked over. Are you Wang Teng? Wang Teng was shocked when he saw a stranger rushing towards him. That guy even knew his name. He frowned and asked, Who are you? Why are you looking for me? My family head is looking for you. Oh right, my family head's surname is Yao, the man in the black suit said. Wang Teng raised his eyebrows. Yao. You should know what's happening. Please follow me. The man was a little proud. He thought that he had scared Wang Teng. After all, based on their family head status, it was an honor for this low-rank martial warrior student that their family head was looking for him. However, get out. Wang Teng replied unhappily. The family head of the Yarrow family? He must be Yarrow Jun's father. Based on the grudge between him and Yarrow Jun, Wang Teng didn't want to bother about this person no matter what motive he had. He didn't want to have any interactions with the other party either. The man's expression froze immediately. He said in disbelief, Do you know what you are saying? I asked you to get out. Don't you understand human language? Wang Teng said expressionlessly. Do you know what our family head status? Before the man could finish speaking, Wang Teng walked past him. Stop right there. The man turned angry from embarrassment. He hooked his right hand into a claw and attacked Wang Teng's shoulder. Bang! The next moment, the man felt his vision turning black. He felt excruciating pain on his face, and his entire body flew out sideways. How is he so strong? The man slammed on the ground. This was the only thought that flashed through his mind before he fainted. The middle-aged man in the black sedan was finally alerted. He walked out of the car. He looked at the unconscious man on the ground and Wang Teng, who was at the side. A frown appeared on his face as he walked over slowly. He said, Young man, it's bad to be too violent. How is Yarrow Jun related to you? Wang Teng asked him instead of replying to him. Anger flashed past the middle-aged man's face. However, he forcefully suppressed his rage and explained, I'm Yarrow Jun's father, Yarrow Guancheng. Yarrow Jun is more violent than me. Indeed, this is a bad thing. You need to educate him properly, Wang Teng said. You. Yarrow Guancheng was so infuriated that he wanted to slap Wang Teng to death. But he couldn't do it, even if he had an extra pair of balls. He took a deep breath and said, I will not argue with you. I came today because I want to reconcile. Reconcile? Wang Teng seemed to have heard a hilarious joke. He sneered. Your son wants to kill me, yet you want me to reconcile with you? All hatred can be put down. If it can't, it must be because the compensation isn't high enough, Yarrow Guancheng said. Chmph. Wang Teng snorted. He was disgusted by Yarrow Guancheng's actions. Yarrow Guancheng said confidently, Tell me, what do you need to reconcile with us? I can satisfy you as long as you don't ask for too much. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in reconciling with someone who wanted to kill me, Wang Teng replied. Then, he walked past him and continued going forward without giving Yarrow Guancheng a chance to reply. Do you know the consequences of rejecting my good intentions? Yarrow Guancheng shouted behind him. His expression was sinister. Wang Teng stopped in his tracks. Yarrow Guancheng gave a mocking smile. He thought that Wang Ting was afraid of him. Are you threatening me? Wang Teng smiled for some reason. Before you touch me, you should consider whether the Yarrow family can bear the implications. Yarrow Guancheng stared at Wang Ting as he left. His face was black, and he was puzzled. Does this fellow have some background I don't know? Chapter 241. My son has the potential to become a general. On the way back, Wang Ting was still thinking of the Yarrow family's matter. Yarrow Guancheng wasn't sincere when he said he wanted to reconcile with him. His attitude was slightly contemptuous, and he was looking down on him. He must have encountered something, so he had no choice but to make this decision. However, he could confirm one thing: Yarrow Guancheng didn't know that Dan Taixian was his master. If not, he wouldn't have dared to threaten him. The Crimson Tiger Troop had sealed off news of what happened that day. Outsiders didn't know about it. As the chief commander of a troop, suffering such humiliation wasn't a glamorous thing. There was no way he would let outsiders know about it. Yarrow Guancheng's pressure might have come from the Jisin martial house. Once I agree to patch up with him, the martial arts academy won't have a reason to look for him anymore. This Yarrow Guancheng is very scheming. A cold smile appeared on the edge of Wang Ting's lips. But why didn't the Crimson Tiger Troop look for Yarrow Jun? He was puzzled. By right, Yarrow Jun was the culprit who had caused everything. There was no reason for the Crimson Tiger Troop to let him go. However, the thoughts of the higher authorities weren't something he could understand. They might not even remember someone like Yarrow Jun. After all, to someone like Xiao Nanfeng, Yarrow Jun was just a nobody. Why would a giant care about a nobody? Wang Ting shook his head and threw this matter to the back of his head. Very soon, he sat on the taxi back to Deer Garden. Mom, Embark, Wang Ting shouted the moment he stepped into the house. My son is back. Li Zumei's eyes lit up as she walked out of the living room. Yes. I just finished my mission, so I came back to take a look at you guys before heading back to school, Wang Ting said. Just nice. I will make some food for you in the afternoon. You can go back to school in the evening, Li Xiaomei said happily as she pulled Wang Ting into the house. Hey, Dad is home too, Wang Ting said in surprise when he saw Wang Shenghua in the living room. Shouldn't Wang Shenghua be in the office at this time? You're back. Wang Shenghua nodded at him. Dad, why aren't you in the office today? Wang Ting asked. Don't mention it. Duda's relatives don't dare to kick up a fuss in Deer Garden, so they go to your dad's office and block him every day. Your dad is so irritated that he could only hide at home, Li Xiaomei said. They create trouble in our company. Wang Ting frowned. Dad, what's going on? Where did they get this courage from? It wasn't a secret that Wang Ting was a martial warrior. Many people knew about it. Duda's relatives should also know that he was a martial warrior. However, they still dared to cause trouble. Did they have some support? They found a 2-star soldier-level martial warrior from somewhere, Wang Shenghua replied helplessly. 2-star soldier level? Let me go and meet him, Wang Ting said. Never mind, let's hide for some time. I don't believe that the 2-star soldier-level martial warrior will allow them to order him around without a reason. They must have paid him a hefty sum. They won't be able to afford him for long, Wang Shenghua said. He was worried that Wang Ting wasn't the martial warrior's match. That's right. Let's not get in a head-on fight. You're still young. You will definitely be more powerful than the 2-star soldier-level martial warrior in the future, Li Xiaomei comforted Wang Ting, afraid that he would let his young emotions get the better of him. The two of them had no idea how powerful their son was, so they were worried for nothing. Dad, Mom, I'm a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior. Wang Ting was caught between laughter and tears. What? Their eyes widened. They suspected that they heard wrong. I said that I'm a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior, Wang Ting repeated helplessly. 4-star soldier level. Wang Shenghua was still in disbelief. He asked curiously, Son, are you joking? That's right. Don't try to coax your mom, Li Xiaomei said. Why will I lie to you? If you don't believe me, I can bring you to the Jisin Marshal House and show you the examination result, Wang Ting said. There's no need for that. We believe you. Wang Shengwa exchanged glances with Li Xiaomei. He then exclaimed, we just find it a little unrealistic. You have only become a martial warrior for a short time, yet you're already at 4-star soldier level. I heard that it's very difficult for a martial warrior to advance his stage. Haha, your son is a genius, Wang Ting said. Wang Shengwa laughed. Good, good. My son has the potential to become a general. Look at how happy you are. General? Is that a stage you can reach so easily? I think that you've gotten dizzy with success. Li Xiaomei was elated too, but she still nudged Wang Shengwa and told him off. All right, I understand. I was just too happy, Wang Shengwa said. Dad, Mom, where's Dudu? Why don't I see her? Wang Ting glanced around and asked curiously. I asked Sister Chen to bring her to the garden to play, Li Xiaomei said. Wang Shengwa nodded. Then, he said to Wang Shengwa, Dad, let's go to the company now and solve the matter. Okay, let's go now. Wang Shengwa wore his clothes happily and went out with Wang Ting. They drove directly to the office. Mr. Wang, young Master Wang, Chen Ergu from the security department was standing guard at the entrance. When he saw the father and son, his eyes lit up. Hey, Ergu. Wang Ting had some impressions of Chen Ergu. After all, his name was easy to remember. Young Master Wang, you actually remember me. Chen Ergu felt overwhelmed with favor. Ergu, are those people still here? Wang Shengwa asked. Yes. They are in the lobby and playing cards. They do nothing else, but they don't want to leave, either, Chen Ergu said helplessly. He glanced at Wang Ting unconsciously as he spoke. He knew that Wang Ting was a martial warrior. A few days ago, Mr. Wang was forced to hide at home because of these people. He hadn't been to the office in a while, but he suddenly came back today. It must be because young Master Wang was back. He wondered if young Master Wang was able to deal with that martial warrior. Chen Ergu muttered in his heart. Bring me over, Wang Ting said. All right. Young Master Wang, this way, please. Chen Ergu led the way. They walked towards the group in the lobby who were having a ball of a time. The other party had obviously noticed them too. Hey, Mr. Wang, I heard that you were on an overseas trip. Did you come back today? A mean-looking man around 30 years old stood up and smiled at Wang Shengwa. Wang Shengwa wanted to reply, but Wang Ting stopped him. He said to the person, this is private property. Please leave this place. Who are you? Do you have the right to speak here? The mean-looking man frowned and said. Here's my son, Wang Ting. Wang Shengwa said. You're Wang Ting. The mean-looking man was stunned. He took a few steps back uncontrollably. Behind him, another muscular man stood up slowly. I heard that you're a 1-star soldier-level martial warrior. It's impressive for you to have such an ability at this young age. However, you're not my match. I'm in charge of this matter. You better hand the person over obediently and not force me to act. You know the consequences of a battle between martial warriors, the muscular man said calmly. Bang! Wang Ting didn't reply to him with his mouth. Instead, the aura of a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior surged towards the man. The muscular man's face turned pale, and he retreated continuously. The chairs behind him got knocked on the ground, but he didn't seem to notice them. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. Chapter 242. Is my love going to end before it starts? You're not a 1-star soldier-level martial warrior. The arrogance and confidence of this 2-star soldier-level martial warrior had vanished like a puff of smoke. He was stupefied and at a loss of what to do. The mean-looking man and the other relatives were just ordinary people. They couldn't withstand Wang Ting's presence at all. In their eyes, Wang Ting was like a frightening beast staring at them like a predator waiting to swallow them. Their faces turned pale from fright, and they collapsed on the ground due to the pressure boring down on them from Wang Ting's aura. They just stared at him in a daze, having lost their ability to speak. You're just a 2-star soldier-level martial warrior. Who gave you the courage to take charge of the matter? Wang Ting looked at the other martial warrior and said calmly, "Boom." The moment he finished speaking, an even more powerful aura erupted and smashed down on the head of the 2-star martial warrior. Bang! The other party's expression changed. This time, he couldn't resist Wang Ting's force of presence anymore. He flew out like a ragdoll. He slammed heavily on the ground and vomited blood on the spot. His eyes were filled with fear. In front of this stark difference in ability, he didn't have any thoughts of resisting. He hurriedly apologized and begged for mercy. "I'm sorry. Go out." Wang Ting said coldly, "If I see you again, I'll send you to the Xingwu continent." The Xingwu continent. The 2-star martial warrior's expression changed again. He obviously knew a thing or two. Wang Ting wasn't going to just simply send him to the Xingwu continent for a holiday. Fear crept up his heart. "I will leave immediately, leave immediately." He crawled and rolled out of the office entrance without caring about the mean-looking man and the other relatives. The mean-looking man and the other relatives looked at the back view of the escaping martial warrior. Suddenly, they understood what despair felt like. "You want the Dudu family's assets?" Wang Ting's calm voice entered their ears at this moment. They shuddered. "No, no. We have never thought about it, never." The mean-looking man shook his head without stopping after he turned and saw Wang Ting's face. "Since you have never thought of it, what are you all doing here?" Wang Ting looked at him and squinted slightly. The mean-looking man didn't know what to say. He couldn't think of a good reason. Cold sweat started appearing on his forehead from his anxiousness. At this moment, a middle-aged lady behind him said quickly, "We just want to see Dudu. She's a poor child. She lost her parents at a young age, so we are very worried." "Chmph." Wang Ting scoffed. These people were lying through their teeth. However, he was too lazy to argue with them. He continued, "Dudu doesn't want to see you. If you dare to appear in front of Dudu or my family in the future, I will make sure you won't have the chance to spend money even if you become rich." His tone was composed, but it sent chills up their spines. They immediately understood that Wang Ting wasn't joking. He meant what he said. Compared to their lives, money had to take the back seat. They hurriedly promised that they would never appear again. "Get out," Wang Ting said. The group ran out of the office building in a frenzy. They didn't dare to stay for another second. They only stopped and panted after running a long distance away. "Brother, are we really going to give up?" The middle-aged woman asked the mean-looking man. "Are you planning to oppose him?" Even the 2-star soldier-level martial warrior acted like a mouse in front of a cat when he saw him. He almost peed in his pants. "What right do we have to offend him?" The mean-looking man glared at her. "I just feel a little unwilling to give up like this. It's a huge sum of money, you know," the woman said in embarrassment. "Money, money, money, that's all you know." The mean-looking man was furious. "That little brat is lucky. She managed to find someone powerful to protect her. No one will dare to touch her in the future." The middle-aged woman's pupils moved. She continued, "Do you think that the Wang family is eyeing her inheritance too? Forget it. He is a martial warrior, a 2-star and above martial warrior. Will he care about this small fortune?" The mean-looking man shook his head. "Let's not think about this anymore. I've decided to take the earliest plane available back to my old home. I will never come to Donghai if I don't need to." Sigh, me too. I will never come to Donghai again. Big cities like this are filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. It's not a place we can handle, the middle-aged woman said a little dejectedly. The other relatives treated these two people as their leaders, so they didn't have any say in this matter at all. After deciding, they rushed to the airport and booked the earliest flight they could find. They returned to their hometown without any hesitation. Wang Ting ignored them. After all, they were just ordinary people. They couldn't create a huge scene. There was no need to take their lives because of this. Since there was no one causing a disturbance, the company was finally able to resume its operations. The employees weren't afraid anymore. Instead, their morale was significantly boosted because of the power Wang Ting revealed just now. Discussions were going on continuously. The son of their CEO was a powerful martial warrior. They felt honored to be in this company, and at the same time, they were more confident about its future. Li Xiaomei was cooking when Wang Shengguo and Wang Teng returned home. Dudu had also come back and was watching cartoons in the living room. "Brother, you're back." Her eyes lit up when she saw Wang Ting. She stumbled and ran over with her arms wide open. She wanted a hug. "Unfortunately, you're just a little girl. It would be great if a beauty asked for a hug voluntarily." This thought popped up in Wang Ting's mind suddenly. He hurriedly shook his head and carried the little beauty in front of him. On the other side, Wang Shengguo was excitedly telling Li Xiaomei about what just happened. He wasn't just excited, he felt proud too. "You should have seen how majestic our son looked. He didn't even move. All he did was release his aura, and the 2-star martial warrior started peeing in his pants. He ran away without any courage to threaten us anymore," Wang Shengguo said with exhilaration. "When you were kidnapped that time, I saw our son in action. Those people were so scared that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly." "Martial warriors are indeed powerful," Li Xiaomei said. "No matter what, our son is a martial warrior, a powerful martial warrior. Our Wang family will only get better and better." Wang Shengguo was already looking forward to the future. "Oh right. Dad, I've already gotten the license. You can start reorganizing the company," Wang Teng walked over and said. "You got it." Wang Shengguo's eyes shimmered. However, he was astounded at the same time. "How did you get it so quickly? This wasn't a normal license. It was a license for war resources like weapons and Dan medicine." He had heard that some mighty martial warriors might not get the approval even if they wanted to apply for the license. Even if their application was approved, they needed to undergo a long process that included some intelligence evaluation and wealth estimation. It was troublesome, and it was common for the process to drag for a year or two. Wang Teng smiled mysteriously. "To some people, this is something that can be solved with a single sentence." Wang Shengguo was shocked. It looked like Wang Ting had extremely powerful support. He got more and more excited. The stronger Wang Ting's support was, the greater the benefit their Wang family would receive. But, on second thought, he suddenly found it harder and harder to see through Wang Teng. Wang Teng wasn't just strong in terms of ability, but he also possessed a powerful background unknown to him. He had surpassed the achievements the Wang family had accumulated for so many years single-handedly. It was hard to have such huge achievements. But, he didn't probe further. Wang Shengguo felt complicated in his heart. After shaking off his thoughts, he chatted with Wang Ting about the restructuring of the company for a while. Li Xiaomei finished cooking and called everyone to the dining table. Lunch was extremely sumptuous. The family had a fun time eating. After lunch, Wang Ting bade farewell to his family and left his house. But, he didn't go back to school immediately. He contacted Lin Chuhan instead. School had started for some time, but he hadn't met Lin Chuhan yet. He didn't know how she was coping with the new environment. After the call was picked up, he knew that she was at home, so he drove to her house. When he reached her house, Mother Lin greeted him enthusiastically as usual. She gave him fruits and snacks to eat and seemed exceptionally delighted that he came. "Wang Ting, you haven't visited us for a long time. How's your university?" Mother Lin asked. "It's not bad," Wang Ting smiled and replied as he ate the fruits Mother Lin had served him. That's good, that's good. All right, you youngsters can chat yourselves. I won't disturb you." Mother Lin winked at Lin Chuhan and happily went to attend to her shop. Lin Chuhan rolled her eyes helplessly. She said, "What drug did you give my mom? Why does she like you so much? You won't understand." "This is my charm," Wang Ting laughed and replied. "Show off." Lin Chuhan was speechless. This fellow was really thick-skinned. "Let's go up. My younger sister hasn't seen you for a long time and kept asking about you. You're amazing. You mesmerized the young and the old," Lin Chuhan teased him. "Is Chuxia better?" Wang Ting asked. Lin Chuhan sighed. "Still the same." They came to Lin Chuxia's room while chatting. The windows in the room were opened. Sunlight was shining inside and dissipated the coldness in the room. Lin Chuxia was lying beside the window with her fists on her cheeks. She was looking at the sparrows outside. It was hard to figure out why she was staring at them so intently. Chuxia, look who's here, Lin Chuhan shouted. Sister. Lin Chuxia turned around and saw Wang Ting standing beside Lin Chuhan. She called out in surprise, brother-in-law. Lin Chuhan slapped her forehead. Fine, you can't change your habit. Wang Ting burst out laughing when he saw her expression. Many attribute bubbles had piled up in Lin Chuxia's room. Wang Ting greeted her while secretly picking up the attributes. Poison Force *10 Demon Lotus Poison Body *6 Poison Force *10 Gun Kung Fu *3 He received 56 points of Poison Force and 45 points of Demon Lotus Poison Body attribute. Poison Force, 35,500, 2-star, Demon Lotus Poison Body, 260 10,000 This time, his Poison Force rose to 2-star, but the journey to form the complete Demon Lotus Poison Body was still long. This special physique was indeed difficult to gain. Wang Ting also received 18 points of Gun Kung Fu. It was obvious that this little fellow had secretly practiced Gun Kung Fu during her free time. Lin Chuxia's talent seemed quite good. Despite figuring everything out herself, her Gun Kung Fu was still presentable. She didn't go on the wrong path. Normal people might not be able to achieve this. Brother-in-law, when are you going to bring me out to play again? Lin Chuxia asked. Next time. I'll take you out when I'm free next time, Wang Ting smiled and replied. Next time again. Lin Chuxia was a little disappointed. I will definitely bring you out next time. I promise. Wang Ting stuck out 2 fingers and tapped her forehead. Aya, don't poke my forehead. Lin Chuxia shook her head. Then, she nodded and said, all right, you cannot lie to me. If I lie to you, I'm a little dog, Wang Ting smiled and said. Yes, little dog. Wang Ting stayed at Lin Chuhan's house for more than 2 hours. At around 4 p.m., Lin Chuhan and Wang Ting prepared to go back to school. Let me send you, Wang Ting said. Lin Chuhan drew her hair back and nodded. She didn't reject him. The two of them said goodbye to Mother Lin and Lin Chuxia. They went to the intersection, sat in the car, and drove to the university town. Donghai University Town. A sports car drove into Donghai University. Under the gazes of many students, it slowly stopped below the freshman dormitory. Oh my God, it's a sports car. Whose is it? I have never seen this number plate before. It's not the young masters from our school. The students started chattering uncontrollably. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. F***K, look. It's Lin Chuhan. Lin Chuhan? Which Lin Chuhan? What do you mean? There's only one Lin Chuhan in our school. Lin Chuhan got out of the car. When she noticed the gazes turning towards this side and stopping on her, she felt helpless. However, this was the effect she wanted. It looks like you're really popular in Donghai University, Wang Ting smiled and said. He parked the car and followed her. Of course. An outstanding person like me will be in the spotlight no matter where I go. Lin Chuhan flicked her hair. You're getting arrogant. Wang Ting teased. Lin Chuhan suddenly realized that she had been influenced by Wang Ting's bad habits and was starting to speak randomly. She coughed awkwardly and said, wait here for a while. I will put my luggage in my dormitory and come down to treat you to a meal. All right. Go ahead. Wang Ting nodded. Lin Chuhan carried her bags up to the dormitory while Wang Ting waited on the spot. An uproar erupted among the students who saw this scene. F***K, F***K, who is that guy? Lin Chuhan got out of his car and even spoke to him so gently. This is bad. My ice goddess got melted by someone. Is my love going to end before it even starts? Did you hear that? My heart seems to have shattered. Many people were guessing Wang Ting's identity. When school started, Lin Chuhan had gained high popularity because of her outstanding appearance and aura, as well as her exceptional results. Many young men treated her as the new goddess of Donghai University. She was placed side by side with the other existing goddesses. They were neck to neck. 1 month after school started, many young men who felt superior confessed to Lin Chuhan. However, Lin Chuhan had never spoken to any one of them pleasantly. She rejected all of them in a cold manner. Lin Chuhan's popularity soared even higher because of this. But, now, Lin Chuhan sat in a man's car to come to school, and her attitude towards him was ambiguous. She seemed to like him. The male students from Donghai University refused to accept this. Chapter 243, Little Brother is so handsome. He can be forgiven for what he said. Around 10 minutes later, Lin Chuhan came down from the dormitory building. 2 more young ladies were accompanying her, and the group was smiling and chatting happily. They seemed to be very close. If you came a little later, the male students around me would have skinned me alive, Wang Teng smiled and said. You're afraid of them? Lin Chuhan retorted. I'm not afraid of them. Based on my judgment, they should be martial arts students. I think that none of them is my match. However, that doesn't mean that I want to be treated like an animal in the zoo, Wang Teng said casually. Before Lin Chuhan could open her mouth, an ordinary-looking female student beside her said abruptly, Chuhan, your friend is a little arrogant. Ignore him. He always has a big mouth, Lin Chuhan said. But, he doesn't have any bad intentions. Don't take it to heart. If he was someone else, I would have scolded him, the ordinary-looking young lady said. Wang Teng just smiled when he heard her comment. He didn't say anything. Anyway, this is the first time I saw you talking to a man like this. Aren't you going to introduce him to us? The ordinary-looking young lady said. The other young lady who came down with Lin Chuhan was pretty and cute. She had a bob cut, and there was some baby fat on her face. She was almost as beautiful as Lin Chuhan. However, their auras were completely different, so they were 2 different types of beauty. At this moment, this young lady agreed with her friend and said, That's right, that's right. Hurry up and introduce this handsome little brother to me. Hey, Tian Xiaoxiao, how can you be so shameless? The ordinary-looking young lady shouted in a helpless tone. What's the problem? Little brother is so handsome. He can be forgiven for what he said, Tian Xiaoxiao replied. The ordinary-looking young lady placed her hand on her forehead and appeared defeated. Wang Teng burst out laughing. Lin Chuhan shook her head helplessly. She said, He was my table buddy during high school, Wang Teng. He's studying in Huanghai Military Academy now and is a martial arts student too. Wow, high school table buddy, Tian Xiaoxiao exclaimed as though she had discovered something amazing. Then, she continued enviously, Why didn't I have a handsome little brother as my table buddy in high school? Love-struck. The ordinary-looking young lady had disdain and contempt on her face. However, she seemed a little surprised when she looked at Wang Teng again. You're from the Huanghai Military Academy? No wonder you're so arrogant. But, the martial arts students from Donghai University are not to be trifled with either. Yes, yes, yes. The martial arts students of Donghai are amazing, Wang Teng nodded and said. He didn't want to argue with her. The ordinary-looking student snorted softly. Lin Chuhan introduced her friends. These are my roommates. This is Xu Wantong, and the lovesick lady beside her is Tian Xiaoxiao. Hey, I'm not lovesick. Tian Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes. Xu Wantong refuted mercilessly, if you're not lovesick, no one is. You can't even move your legs after seeing a handsome man. No way. I don't treat other little brothers like this, Tian Xiaoxiao explained. That's because they're not handsome enough. Xu Wantong glanced at her from the corner of her eyes. Lin Chuhan shook her head when she saw them bickering with each other again. She said, This is how they normally are. You'll get used to it. It's all right. They are very lively. Wang Teng laughed. Lin Chuhan's roommates were easy to talk to. He could tell that they had some minor flaws, but it didn't affect their personalities too much. They are too noisy. They quibble every day. Lin Chuhan complained about them, but she then thought of something and let out a smile. Chuhan, be the judge. Xu Wantong is bullying me. Tian Xiaoxiao ran over and grabbed Lin Chuhan's shoulder. She swung it continuously. All right, that's enough. Do you still want to eat? Asked Lin Chuhan. Yes. Tian Xiaoxiao and Xu Wantong stopped their antics and replied in unplanned unison. You rarely treat. How can I miss this chance? Xu Wantong mumbled. Let's hurry up and leave then, Lin Chuhan said. Lin Chuhan led the way out of the school. Xu Wantong and Tian Xiaoxiao followed closely behind her. The male students wailed in despair when they saw Wang Ting leaving with 3 young ladies. There weren't many female students in the martial arts department. Beauties like Lin Chuhan and Tian Xiaoxiao were even rarer. The students from their school didn't even enjoy such treatment, yet this young man from God knew where was able to date both of them at once. What was the meaning of this? The world was too cruel. They didn't go to a high-class restaurant. Instead, they chose a restaurant with a good environment and affordable prices outside the school. After ordering the dishes, the 4 of them started conversing while waiting. Most of the time, they were talking about recent incidents in school. Xu Wantong and Tian Xiaoxiao were curious about the Huanghai Military Academy, so they kept asking Wang Ting questions. The conversation never stopped. On the other hand, Wang Ting occasionally shifted the topic to Lin Chuhan. He beat around the bush and managed to get her to talk about her experiences in school. Your university life seems more fulfilling than mine, Wang Ting glanced at Lin Chuhan and lamented. Are you trying to say that your university life is very fulfilling too? Lin Chuhan squinted slightly. There was a dangerous glint in her eyes. Ha ha ha, you are thinking too much. Wang Ting laughed awkwardly. Lin Chuhan stared at him for a few seconds. Suddenly, she said, why don't you bring me to your school when you're free? Huh? Wang Ting was shocked. He started getting narcissistic as he thought to himself, I'm an influential man in my school and am quite popular among young ladies. If Lin Chuhan sees this, she might get jealous. Is that not possible? Lin Chuhan asked. That's not it. I have to apply if outsiders want to come to my school, Wang Ting said. You can go and file the application then, Lin Chuhan replied. Wang Ting seemed to have made a huge decision. He nodded and said, all right, tell me beforehand when you plan to visit me. I will apply for you. A satisfied expression finally appeared on Lin Chuhan's face. After they finished eating, Wang Ting sent Lin Chuhan back to her dormitory. It's getting late. I also need to go back to school. Wang Ting opened the car door and said to Lin Chuhan. All right. Lin Chuhan nodded slightly. She continued, thank you for accompanying me today. You don't have to thank me. Wang Ting waved his hand. I'm leaving. He sat back in his car and drove off. You don't have to thank me. Whoa, little brother Wang Ting is indeed handsome. Tian Xiaoxiao cupped her hands together and said dreamily. Let's go, lovesick lady. Lin Chuhan knocked her forehead uncontrollably. Seriously. She ruined the atmosphere. Despite walking into the dormitory, their voices could still be heard faintly. Chuhan, do you like little brother Wang Ting? How is that possible? In that case, I'll contact him tonight. I added him to WeChat. Wang Ting. Chapter 244. Who wasn't a genius? It was past 8 p.m. when Wang Ting reached his school. He drove his car into the university. After all, it was inconvenient to go out in a big city like Donghai without a car. Hence, the school had dedicated parking lots for its students and teachers. In this area, the martial arts students and the normal students enjoyed different treatments. The school didn't allow normal students to drive to school. They were completely enclosed in the school compound. However, the martial arts students didn't have to follow this rule. This wasn't any preferential treatment, though. Martial arts students had different statuses in society, so they couldn't follow the rules all the time. Besides, the martial arts students had to go out on missions. Although most of these missions were around Donghai, the locations were secluded. Most drivers weren't willing to drive there, no matter how much money was given. After all, this was the martial arts era. Under the nourishment of force, animals had started mutating, and danger was everywhere. Without a car, one might have to spend half a day to find transport to his mission venue if he was unlucky. This was a complete waste of time. Thus, cars were a necessity. The school knew this, so they didn't forbid the students from driving. Many martial arts students had their own cars. Of course, they didn't lack the money to buy cars. Some of them even had a few cars in their garages. They took turns driving each car. After all, the damage rate of a mission was quite high. It was normal for cars to get destroyed. Wang Teng had learned about this from his seniors in the martial arts club. He wondered if he should prepare a few cars just in case. He should find those that could withstand some beating. As the students came back, the school started to get livelier. Many buildings were lit up, and it wasn't as deserted as before. The next day, school started as per usual. Wang Teng realized that after the holidays, many freshmen had advanced to become martial warriors. Martial warriors. They might have just broken through the level, so the students didn't know how to control their force. It unknowingly seeped out of their bodies. Wang Teng was able to detect it easily with his ability. Actually, it wasn't that strange. The students who could enter the Huanghai Military Academy were definitely talented. Many of them used to be advanced stage martial disciples. They were only a step away from becoming martial warriors. After they entered the university and collated enough school credits to exchange for cultivation resources, they were able to take giant leaps forward. Wang Teng wasn't the only one improving after entering the university. None of the students were slacking, all of them working hard to climb higher on the ladder. That was even more so when there was an outlier like Wang Teng in their batch. Many students who felt that they were gifted had a ball of flame burning in their hearts. They treated Wang Teng as their target and secretly worked hard to chase after him. Hu Pingliang and his roommates had successfully become martial warriors too. None of them were left behind. Bailey Qingfeng also became a martial warrior. When he said that he only needed just a little bit more a few days ago, he was telling the truth. Wang Teng wondered if he got stimulated by him or he was originally preparing to advance. But there was still a group of students who hadn't advanced. Everyone's talent and skill were different. They couldn't advance together. Before the lesson started, the students in class gathered together and started discussing. There were bright smiles on their faces. Some were elated, some were excited, and some were inflated. Wang Teng, I've already become a martial warrior. Let's have a battle after I start practicing my force battle technique. A male student walked straight to Wang Teng and said with a smile. The room turned quiet instantly. The atmosphere felt a little weird. F***K, Chen Yang actually wants to challenge Wang Teng? He is too. I don't know what to say. What gave him the courage? You shouldn't say that. All of us treat Wang Teng like a god, but he might not be that powerful. We are all gifted high school students from all around the country. No one is weaker than the rest. If Wang Teng can do it, we might be able to do it too. Why don't you go and challenge him then? Let me get used to it. Let Chen Yang do it first. A commotion erupted among the students. Many were in disbelief, feeling that Chen Yang must have gotten arrogant, letting his success get to his head. However, no one would mind having more drama in school. Since school started, Wang Teng's battle result was striking. Many people respected him from the bottom of their hearts, but not everyone was convinced. Who wasn't a genius? Did Chen Yang know the distance between them? He did. But he still wanted to try. If he didn't have the courage to challenge someone stronger than him, he wouldn't need to continue practicing as a martial warrior. No one believed what they saw. They would only be convinced after a personal battle. Wang Teng was chatting casually with Hu Pingliang and his friends when he heard the voice. He raised his head and looked at the handsome young man in astonishment. You want to challenge me? Yes, but not now. 1 month later, Chen Yang replied. Your courage is commendable. However, you're not my match. Not now, not in the future, Wang Teng shook his head and said. He wasn't underestimating his opponent. He was just stating the truth. All this while, he had been aiming ahead of him. The distance between the freshmen like Chen Yang and him was too vast. If he turned around, he might not even be able to see them. This was the difference. Chen Yang didn't understand. His expression turned ugly as though he was humiliated. We will only know who wins after fighting. If you really want to fight, I can give you a chance. But, I hope that you won't regret it, Wang Ting said. Wang Ting, you're too self-conceited. Chen Yang felt that he was about to burst into anger. Listen to what he was saying. What did he mean by giving him a chance? What did he mean by he wouldn't regret it? Every sentence was enough to infuriate him. He was looking down on him without even hiding it. I'm not arrogant. I'm just telling the truth, Wang Ting said. I'm not going to bullshit with you. We'll meet 1 month later at the arena. Chen Yang threw this sentence down and left. Wang Ting shook his head. Chen Yang didn't know the difference in their abilities at all. He was a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior who could kill 5-star warriors. On the other hand, Chen Yang had just stepped into the 1-star soldier level. Based on Wang Ting's advancing speed, he wouldn't know how powerful he would become 1 month later. Chen Yang would at most be at 2-star soldier level. How could he fight with him? He had tried to persuade him sincerely, but the other party wouldn't listen. He even thought that Wang Ting was humiliating him. Humans don't listen to honest advice. Wang Ting sighed in his heart. Brother Teng, are you really going to fight with him? Hu Pingliang leaned over and asked. Lu Shu and his friends were looking at him too. They were all curious. They admired Chen Yang, as he was the first person who had dared to challenge Wang Ting. It didn't matter if he was brave or stupid. At least he did something they didn't dare to do. That's right. Since he wants to fight, I shall satisfy him. It won't take up too much time anyway, Wang Ting replied calmly. Then, you must show him some mercy. We are all classmates, Hu Pingliang hesitated before saying. Wang Ting was speechless. Am I someone who doesn't know when to stop? I'm not sure about that. However, the whole school knows your special fondness for bestowing people with horns, Song Shuhang said softly. Wang Ting, they are trying to ruin my reputation. Chapter 245, Chen Yang's face turned green. The students from Battle Class 1 spread the news that Chen Yang wanted to challenge Wang Ting. Very soon, most of the freshmen had heard about it. This had nothing to do with Chen Yang, though. The main reason was that Wang Ting was extremely famous now. He had defeated a few top 100 seniors consecutively. This was no ordinary feat. Not only was he famous, but his reputation was also good. Many people felt proud of him. Because of Wang Ting's presence, their seniors from the higher level had high hopes for this batch of freshmen. They wouldn't treat them like how they treated the past batches. You could say that if Wang Ting called for help, at least a third of the freshmen would step out to support him. Many people felt that Chen Yang had no chance in this battle. They treated it purely as a show. In fact, some of them even used him as their scout. You can go first. We will stand behind you and support you. This was what they were thinking. Actually, most freshmen didn't have a clear understanding of the ability of the top 100 students. Of course, this was because Wang Ting had defeated many top 100 students, so in their hearts, the position of the top 100 students was pulled down. They just felt that Wang Ting was very powerful. However, Wang Ting was a freshman too. If he could do it, why couldn't they? Youth knows no fear. This was the kind of mentality they had. But, when the second and third year seniors heard this, they shook their heads and laughed. The student who could defeat the 100 students must at least have the battle power of a 3-star soldier-level martial warrior. It was useless unless Chen Yang was able to advance to 2-star soldier level within a month and learn an extremely powerful force battle technique that would allow his battle power to reach 3-star soldier level and above. If not, this would be child's play for Wang Ting. Many students were discussing the challenge after their meals. However, most of them were talking about Wang Ting. I heard that a freshman wants to challenge Wang Ting. Freshman? Who? How is he so confident? I don't know. I don't care who he is. I only know that he's a freshman. Wang Ting will probably bestow him with bruises on his head again. After all, even the third and fourth year seniors couldn't evade it. Chen Yang heard such discussions when he walked along the paths in school and the cafeteria. He realized that he had become the backdrop. To hell with a backdrop. His face turned green in anger. At first, He thought that this was a good chance for him to become famous. However, things went in an unexpected direction. No one cared about him. They were all discussing how Wang Ting would torment him a month later. Wait for me. I entered the university as an extreme martial disciple. With the resources given by my family and the school, I believe that I can catch up with Wang Ting in a month. Chen Yang clenched his fist and gritted his teeth as he thought to himself furiously. He wanted to go out to relax, but now, he turned around and walked towards the actual combat training building. Cultivate. Cultivate. Cultivate to death. The popularity of this event lasted only for a few days. Everyone was busy having lessons and cultivating. Who would care about this every day? Especially those people who hadn't become martial warriors. They wanted to catch up with everyone as quickly as possible, so they worked extremely hard. The freshmen who just became martial warriors didn't relax either. Wang Ting had already set an example. They had to work hard to run towards him and shorten the distance between them. Time passed. Every day, Wang Ting attended lessons, picked up attributes, ended his lessons, picked up attributes. After his enlightenment and spirit rose, his cultivation speed became faster too. When he was free, he would practice his battle techniques. All his battle techniques progressed steadily. His campus life was extremely fulfilling. It was Wednesday, and Wang Ting had a theory lesson today. He left after picking up attributes. He was able to grasp theoretical knowledge just by picking up attributes. His progress was ahead of the other students. This was a piece of cake for him. He was walking further and further on the path of a star student. Then, he ran to the Dan faculty to observe a lesson. He was pretty interested in alchemy, rune, and smithery. It was always good to have more skills. Thus, usually, whenever he had the chance, he would observe other faculties' lessons. He had gone there multiple times already, so all the instructors of the faculties had an impression of him. They took more notice of him too. This was an outstanding student who was extremely talented in martial arts. They didn't want him to walk on the wrong path. However, they noticed that his talent in other subjects was also quite high. Thus, they paid more attention to him. As time went by, the students from the other faculties couldn't stand it anymore. They grumbled in their hearts. Hey, we are your children. Wang Ting is from another faculty. Please don't show him too much love. The instructor from the Dan faculty, Shozhuxiu, stood on the podium and said, "You have been studying spiritual herb differentiation for some time. Let's do a test today. Class monitor, come up and help me distribute the papers." This is too much. Our instructor is taking a surprise quiz. I didn't revise. How can I take the test? That's right. Instructor Shaw is too sneaky. He didn't inform us beforehand. The students below started crying in agony. The class monitor of Dan Class 1 stood up unwillingly and walked to the podium to take the papers. He distributed it to everyone. At first, he thought that being the class monitor was a good thing. But it wasn't. The instructor called him whenever he needed and treated him like a coolie. You must have a strong foundation in spiritual herb differentiation. The result of your alchemy will depend on how hard you have worked in the past. Do you want me to give you time to revise when you all are making dans? Shozhuxiu asked. Instructor, you have worked hard for so many years, but we've only just started learning. There are so many spiritual herbs, and the book is as thick as a dictionary. How can we memorize everything? The students cried bitterly. That's why you have to work even harder. Shozhuxiu encouraged them. He continued, don't worry. This is just a small test to see how much knowledge you have grasped. It will allow me to know how to guide you specifically. The class monitor passed the script to everyone. When he reached Wang Ting, there was one last paper in his hand. The instructor had prepared a set of papers for Wang Ting too. The class monitor felt helpless. Why was this fellow everywhere? His battle talent was exceptional, and he also displayed high aptitude in the herb field. This was infuriating. I wonder how you will score. He slammed the test on Wang Ting's table and turned back to return to his seat. Wang Ting shook his head before taking a look at the script. The test started. Although the students complained and moaned, they still did the papers obediently. Only the sound of pen scribbling on the papers was heard in the classroom. This paper isn't too difficult. Wang Ting scanned the questions and started writing furiously. Less than half an hour later, he finished the entire question paper. He handed over the paper and prepared to leave. It looked like there were no attributes to pick up today. Wang Ting, you're done? Sho Zhuxiu was surprised. He looked at the test paper that was filled with writings. Wang Ting had really finished the paper. He frowned and said, "Do you want to inspect it?" "No. It isn't that difficult," Wang Ting said calmly. "Isn't difficult?" Sho Zhuxiu glanced at him. He had prepared the questions personally, so he knew that some of them were quite difficult. A newbie couldn't answer everything. Especially the last two questions. They were extremely difficult. Students who didn't have a deep understanding of spiritual herbs might only be able to answer 1 or 2 points. Yet, Wang Ting said that it wasn't difficult. Chapter 246. Diligence makes one outstanding. Classmates, work hard have a seat. I will mark your answers first. Sho Zhuxiu was curious when he heard Wang Ting's arrogant tone. He lowered his head and marked the paper. Wang Ting felt helpless. He could only return to his seat. The other students were astounded when they saw this scene. Wang Ting had finished the paper so quickly. Did he just write his answers casually? Many students started hastening their pace. Another half an hour passed. Finally, someone else handed in the sheet too. It was the class monitor of Dan Class 1. Wang Ting looked up at him. What's his name? Xiong something? Wang Ting wasn't a regular of this class. He only came occasionally to observe the lessons. The other students in the class just called the guy class monitor. Thus, he didn't remember what his name was. Sho Zhuxiu had finished marking Wang Ting's script by now. He let out a long sigh. This fellow gave him quite a huge surprise. When he saw the class monitor, Xiong Cheng, walking over to hand in his paper, he flipped Wang Ting's paper over subconsciously. It was better not to let them see the score. Otherwise, it would be a huge stimulation. After Xiong Cheng handed in his sheet, Sho Zhuxiu started marking it on the spot. Other students started handing in their scripts. There weren't many questions, so there was quite a lot of time left after everyone completed the papers. Read your books. I will mark the papers, Sho Zhuxiu said. Another 20 minutes passed. There was still some time before the lesson ended. Sho Zhuxiu marked the last paper and got up. He glanced at the students and sighed in his heart. Compared to Wang Ting, the results of the other students were unbearable. Looks like I have to be tough. Students, you didn't score very well. Go back and copy the spiritual herb differentiation textbook 10 times. I want to see it 1 month later, he said calmly. The students started wailing loudly. 10 times. No. Instructor, we will die. Instructor, how many points did we score? Why do you need to punish us like this? That's right, you should at least let us know how we die. Since you say that, class monitor, come up and distribute the paper back to everyone. You can read their results along the way, Sho Zhuxiu said. Xiong Cheng started his manual labor again. He picked up the stack of papers on the podium but realized that there was a piece of paper placed individually at the side. Instructor, what about this one? He asked. You don't have to care about this. Distribute the rest, Sho Zhuxiu said. Xiong Cheng was confused. But, he didn't say anything and continued distributing the papers. He lowered his head. The first paper was his. His expression changed when he saw the score. I only score 72 out of 100 points. He wondered if the instructor had marked the papers wrongly. However, he didn't have the courage to ask him. There was only a tiny chance that the instructor was wrong. He would rather not bring disgrace to his own head. He felt a little embarrassed reading his own result. Xiong Cheng, 72. He remembered the instructor's words and announced his result after hesitating. Our class monitor only scored 72. Why is it so low? I felt that the test wasn't difficult. That's right, I might not get a high score, but I think I can score 70 to 80 points. Did he perform below par? The other students in class cried out in alarm. They found it unbelievable. The questions looked quite easy, so they didn't think that he would score so little. Unfortunately, they were thinking too much. Cao Xin, 63. Yu Ming, 36. Rao Bang, 56. All the other results after him were 70 marks and below. Half of the students scored less than 50. I failed the exam. I only scored 36 points. I want to die, Yu Ming shouted. His face turned red as he knocked his head on the table. 36 points. It was too low. It was an unprecedented low score. I failed too. I scored 56 points. Rao Bang sighed. He felt that he was at his lowest point in life. These people were all top students in their high school. Yet, they failed their first test in university. The students cried piteously. They seemed to have received a huge blow. The highest score was 75. A quiet young lady called Zhuo Qiutong got 3 points higher than Xiong Cheng. When everyone heard her score, they were surprised. They didn't expect the quiet and reserved Zhuo Qiutong to score such high marks. Wang Teng also glanced at the young lady. She was gentle, quiet, and pretty. She seemed a little frightened of other people's gaze and didn't dare to look them in the eye. You can't judge a book by its cover. Wang Teng sighed in his heart. Look at your marks. Now, you know that I didn't blame you all wrongly, right? Shuo Zhuxiu asked. The students were a little embarrassed. After you go back, redo the test. I will explain the questions in the next lesson, Shuo Zhuxiu said. That's all. This is the end of the lesson. At this moment, Xiong Cheng hesitated before asking, Instructor, I think you missed someone. The whole class was stunned. Miss someone? Oh right. I didn't hear Wang Teng's name just now. He took the exam too, right? That's right. I didn't hear Wang Teng's score. Shuo Zhuxiu was at a loss for a moment. He gave Xiong Cheng a meaningful glance and said, Yes, I missed someone's paper. But I purposely kept it from you. Are you sure you want to see it? Xiong Cheng's heart dropped. Instructor, tell me. Our score is already so bad. Bring it on. No one was stupid. They could hear what the instructor was trying to say through his words. It looks like I've underestimated you. Your mental endurance is not bad. Shuo Zhuxiu nodded and smiled. He went directly to the point. Wang Ting, 100. Fut. Everyone felt as though an arrow had pierced their hearts. They widened their eyes and stared at Shuo Zhuxiu intently. Don't look at me like that. The marks are correct. This is Wang Teng's score. Now, you know why I don't want to announce his score, right? Shuo Zhuxiu was speechless. He had just praised their mental endurance a second ago, but now, they disappointed him. They seemed as though they had lost their souls. Xiong Cheng turned to look at Wang Teng. There was astonishment in his eyes. Wang Teng remained calm as if scoring 100 marks wasn't a big deal. His casual appearance made him feel ashamed. Xiong Cheng's face turned red in embarrassment. Wang Teng, you're amazing. Zhuo Qiutong looked at Wang Teng too. There was admiration on her pretty face. Wang Teng's answers are perfect. I will use his answers as the model answers to explain the questions to you in the next lesson. Shuo Zhuxiu paused for a moment before continuing. Wang Teng, do you have any studying experiences to share with the class? I don't have any experience to share. I feel that Instructor Shuo's method is great. Copying the textbook is a good idea. If 10 times aren't enough, you can copy 100 times. Diligence makes one outstanding. Classmates, work hard. I have high hopes for you. Wang Teng started spouting nonsense. Fut. 100 times. The students felt another arrow stabbing their hearts. This young man was too ruthless. He was vicious. This wasn't something a human could say. Wang Teng, you are a devil. Chapter 247. I score 100 because the script only has 100 points. Shuo Zhuxiu didn't ask the students from Dan Class 1 to copy their textbooks 100 times. After all, It was a textbook that was as thick as the dictionary. Asking them to copy 100 times was a little inhumane. The students from Dan Class 1 heaved a sigh of relief. But, when they looked at Wang Teng, their eyes were filled with hidden bitterness. Even Zhuo Qiutong, who admired Wang Teng a while ago, started grumbling in her heart. Oh my God, 100 times was too scary. If you cut Wang Teng's heart, it must be black. Wang Teng ignored everyone's gazes and gave an "I'm doing this for your sake" expression. Then, he left the class triumphantly. Wang Teng. Xiong Cheng's voice sounded behind him the moment he walked out of the classroom. Why was Xiong Cheng looking for Wang Teng? The other students were about to leave too, but they stopped in their tracks to watch the show. What's the matter? Asked Wang Teng. We didn't revise properly, so we didn't score well. Next time, we won't lose to you, Xiong Cheng said. Wang Teng glanced around him and asked everyone, do you feel the same way? That's right. We didn't revise properly. Next time, we will score better. This was their course. Wang Teng was an outsider. No matter what, they couldn't embarrass themselves in front of an outsider. Everyone agreed. They didn't care if they could score higher than Wang Teng. They mustn't lose in terms of aura. Wang Teng glanced at his attributes panel. After picking so many attributes, his spiritual herb differentiation had reached the specialized level. Spiritual herb differentiation, 351,000, specialized. Spiritual herb differentiation had an unwritten level segregation in the alchemy world. From the lowest to the highest, they were foundation, well-versed, specialized, master, grandmaster. The specialized state was the stage of the instructors in school. That meant that his spiritual herb differentiation knowledge had reached the level of the school's instructors. He looked at everyone and smiled. It looks like you still don't know the difference between you and me. You are still working hard to get 100 marks, but I get 100 because the test is only worth 100 point. Everyone, Wang Teng turned around and left without caring about their feelings. After he walked away, the students from Dan Class 1 finally regained their senses. They exploded in anger. He's too arrogant. But, he seems to be telling the truth. Don't forget that he only took half an hour to complete the paper. F***K, why are you boosting other people's morale and reducing your own courage? So what if he completed it in half an hour? Maybe he was more familiar with the questions. That's right. We must score better than him the next time. I don't believe that he can score full marks all the time. Xiong Cheng's expression was ugly. He treated Wang Teng as his opponent, but Wang Teng didn't bother about him at all. This feeling was infuriating. Wang Teng didn't really care, though. He was constantly improving. They were already so far behind him, so in the future, they would only be further behind. Thus, they shouldn't use him as a comparison. They would only feel more despair. I'm doing this for your sake. Why don't you understand? Wang Teng sighed in his heart. He gave a distressed expression like an old father. It was Thursday the next day. He had one rune lesson. The moment the instructor, Chenisheng, entered the class, he placed a pile of papers on the table and said with a smile, "Students, let's do a small test today." His announcement was followed by cries of agony. The same cry in the same world. Wang Teng noticed that the instructors loved to have surprise tests. Catching the students off guard was a poor form of humor too. Besides some theories, the rune test consisted of the drawing of runes. Wang Teng shook his head helplessly. This exam was meaningless for him. He would rather pick up attributes. However, since he was here, he should do the test. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He completed the exam in half an hour and handed in the answers. The students from the rune class raised their heads in bewilderment. The instructor, Chenisheng, knew that he had a good grasp of basic rune knowledge, but he didn't expect him to finish so quickly. He glanced at Wang Teng in wonder and started marking the paper. A few minutes later, when he finished, Chenisheng was left in awe. This paper was perfect. Even the difficult rune drawings were completed without a mistake. It looked the same as the model answer, as if they were carved out of the same mold. Of course, this wasn't astonishing enough. After all, he had seen many students who were able to do this. Copying wasn't hard. The hard part was to have your own style. Wang Teng already instilled his own style into his runes. This was extremely rare. Rune studies weren't rigid, and its foundational structure wasn't hard either. The hardest part was its myriad of changes. Some talented students who didn't have their own style could become rune masters, but they weren't able to progress far. Their future was limited. However, people with their own style were different. Their future was immeasurable. Such people were rare. Style was something hard to explain. The runes all looked the same, so how could you tell if one was drawn with style or wasn't? A rune master who could be an instructor would be able to tell with one look. It was like calligraphy. If the same words were copied, some seemed dead, while others had their own style and uniqueness. Many calligraphers who were immersed in this art were able to tell the difference at first glance. After marking the papers, Chen Yisheng's eyes were glittering. He glanced at Wang Ting without knowing what to say. The next afternoon, during the smithery lesson. The instructor of the smithery lesson was an extremely muscular man. He was more than 2 meters tall, and his arms were as thick as other people's thighs. When he saw the instructor for the first time, Wang Ting got reminded of Lu Zixing. Both of them were muscular hunks, and the lumps on their muscles were very frightening. The fitness trainers in his past life would feel too ashamed to show their faces when they saw his body. Wang Ting couldn't help but wonder if all the blacksmiths looked like this. If he was going to be like this in the future, he would hide and cry in the toilet. Fortunately, he relied on picking up attributes, so he didn't have such bulging muscles. The instructor of the smithery lesson was called Xiong Ba. Yes, his name was tough and domineering too. However, all the students felt that he was given the wrong name. Students, we will have a test today. Did you see the metal on your smithing table? You will need to finish smelting and forging the metal before class ends. I will assign points based on your completion rate. When Xiong Ba opened his mouth, his voice wasn't domineering at all. Instead, he sounded like the instructors teaching liberal arts. Just listening to his voice, you wouldn't think that he was a 2 meters tall muscular hunk. It's not a theory test but a practical one. Wang Ting looked at the metal on the smithing table and was startled. This is the more commonly seen black iron. When the exam started, information about the black iron appeared in Wang Ting's mind. At the same time, he opened the furnace beside him. When the temperature reached a certain point, he formed a gentle force and sent the black iron into the furnace. Chapter 248, 100 Forged Black Iron. It's almost done. 10 minutes later, Wang Ting accurately found the right time and took the black iron out of the furnace. He raised his hammer and smashed it down. The sound of hammering rang in the classroom. At this moment, the other students had also started hammering. The entire smithery studio was filled with the sound of metal smashing metal. Wang Ting's hammering sound merged with the other noises. To the untrained ears, it was the same as others. Xiong Ba raised his eyebrows. This sound. His ears moved, and he immediately found the source. Although he listened to all these noises every day in the smithery room, his sense of hearing wasn't worse than other people. As a martial warrior, he had his ways of protecting his ears. To a blacksmith, the sense of hearing was crucial. That was because they needed to listen to the sound of metal. A skilled blacksmith would be able to determine the level of impurities in the metal and the location of the impurities through its sound alone. This was how they hammered perfect materials for weapons. Xiong Ba's gaze was instantly fixed on Wang Ting. There was amazement in his eyes. It's him. He didn't go closer. He just secretly observed him from the podium. The more he looked at him, the more dumbstruck he felt. What exquisite smithery skills. Is Wang Ting the successor of a family of blacksmiths? That's not right. I heard that he's the child of an ordinary businessman. He doesn't have any special background. Did he figure it out himself? If he did, he's extremely gifted. Many thoughts flashed past Xiong Ba's head. Then, he turned to look at the other students. He couldn't ignore the other students because of Wang Ting. There were still many talented students in his smithery class. Bang, bang, bang. Clang, clang, clang. This was Wang Ting's first attempt at forging. Initially, he was quite slow, as he wanted to get used to the sensation. Towards the end, his speed gradually increased. The metal hammer in his hand kept swinging, leaving lingering shadows. It was so fast that people couldn't see his actions clearly. The students around Wang Ting couldn't help but focus on him. The frequency of his hammering was too fast and conspicuous. It was impossible not to notice it. When they saw the situation on Wang Ting's side, the students were confused. Is this the hand speed of a single person? Their jaws dropped, and they couldn't push it back. There was unspoken criticism in their hearts. Xiong Ba opened his mouth. Suddenly, he felt a little envious. He had this hand speed only when he was young. It's good to be young. 1.5 hours later, Wang Ting finally finished hammering the iron. He looked at the pitch black and shimmering black iron in front of him and nodded in satisfaction. He didn't make any sound. He just raised his head. Xiong Ba had already noticed that he had stopped forging. When he saw him raise his hand, he walked over. Not caring about the temperature of the metal, he directly picked it up to take a closer look. The astonishment in his eyes got thicker. This is 100 forged. Xiong Ba suspected that he had seen wrongly. He flipped the item a few more times and even scrutinized the edges. In the end, he permeated his force into the metal before finally confirming that this was 100 forged black iron. 100 forged meant that the raw material had undergone 100 times of hammering. The greater the number of times it was hammered, the lesser the impurities in the metal. Besides 100 forged, there were 1,000 forged, 10,000 forged, and even 100,000 forged. Some blacksmiths were willing to spend a few years or even more than 10 years to forge a weapon. Where do you think the time was spent? If they wanted to complete a high-class smithery job, the material had to be of good quality. If not, it would be destroyed after 1,000 times of hammering. Going beyond the limit was as bad as falling short. Also, blacksmiths were only willing to spend a large amount of their precious time on high-quality materials. Black iron was just one of the most common metal materials. 100 forged was its limit. If the blacksmith wasn't skilled enough and didn't control his strength properly, there might be too much pressure during the hammering, and the black iron would turn into scrap iron before it could be hammered 100 times. Very good. The completion of this black iron is very high. It has reached 97% purity. It's already a rare refined iron. Xiong Ba wasn't stingy with his compliments. There was admiration in his eyes as he looked at Wang Ting. This person was an exceptional talent in smithery. 100 forged metals could have different purity levels too. It depended on the blacksmith's technique. In the smithery industry, purity never reached 100%. This was just the ideal stage, and it was unattainable. If you asked a grandmaster blacksmith to hammer the most ordinary material, he wouldn't be able to make it 100% pure. Thus, Xiong Ba felt that Wang Ting's 97% was the highest he could reach. There was no way the iron could be purer than this. The other people were still engrossed in their forging, so they didn't hear Xiong Ba's words. If not, they wouldn't want to forge anymore. Your smithery skill is not bad. Do you have a master? Xiong Ba asked the question in his mind. No, I just came to listen to your lessons. Wang Ting shook his head and replied. You just came to my class, yet you're able to reach this stage in such a short time? Xiong Ba was mentally prepared, but when he heard Wang Ting admitting it personally, he still felt dumbfounded. All right, there's nothing else. You can leave now. Xiong Ba waved his hand and continued, oh right, I will keep your 100 forged black iron. I will return it to you in the next lesson. Okay. Wang Ting didn't know what Xiong Ba needed the black iron for, but he knew that Xiong Ba wouldn't trick him for a mere 100 forged black iron. He wasn't that greedy. After Wang Ting left, Xiong Ba announced the end of the exam 10 minutes before the lesson ended. Then, he inspected the students' work one by one. 2 of them were able to do 100 forged, but their purity couldn't be compared to Wang Ting's. One was at 67% while the other was at 83%. 67% was not bad for a beginner. As for the other student who managed to attain 83%, He came from a family of blacksmiths. His foundation was good, and he was already outstanding enough to be able to reach this stage. Xiong Ba announced the results and encouraged everyone. Then, he ended the lesson. The student from the blacksmith family stood up and asked, "Wait, instructor, what's Wang Teng's purity percentage?" Xiong Ba couldn't bear to stimulate the child. But, when he saw the stubbornness in his eyes, he sighed and said, "100 forged, 97%. The students in the class were flabbergasted. He managed to reach 97% purity. How is it so high? He must at least be at master level to reach this purity. Such a genius really exists in the world," the student who came from a smithery family said dejectedly. "He's an exception. There are not many geniuses like him, so you don't have to compare yourself to him. You're exceptional enough," Xiong Ba consoled him. When the student heard his words, he felt even worse. There was no point in comparing. This hurt even more. In an instant, the student's face turned black, and he gave off a depressed aura. "He's doing it again." Xiong Ba felt helpless. This student was outstanding in all areas, but he always turned into a zombie whenever he got stimulated. Xiong Ba didn't know how to react. He coughed awkwardly and said, "Cough, cough, Yang Gong, I suddenly think that if you work harder, you will be able to catch up with Wang Teng very soon." "Really?" "Yes, I'm very sure. I know. I will not lose to anyone. Instructor Xiong, I need to go back and train now. See you." "See you," Xiong Ba let out a long sigh. Chapter 249, Virtual Combat Chamber. All the faculties were having examinations recently. The Battle faculty and the Command faculty were no exception. The Command Center had theory exams, including a sand table exam about battle command. Unfortunately, Wang Teng wasn't interested in them, so he only picked up attributes and didn't go for the tests. The Battle faculty had theory exams too, but their main focus was actual combat. Friday, in the afternoon, the instructor of the actual combat lesson, Deng Bo, led everyone to the actual combat training building. As they walked, he said, "We have the actual combat assessment today. We will be taking the exam with the other classes." The Battle faculty had the most number of students, so it had more than one class. Along the way, Wang Teng's Battle Class 1 met the other classes. The instructors greeted each other, then gathered and arrived at the actual combat training building. "We are taking the exam with the other classes. Won't it be embarrassing if we don't score well? I must be serious later. We can't lose to the other classes." The other classes were having low discussions among themselves too. No one wanted to lose to the others. When they reached the actual combat training building, they realized that the head of the Battle faculty, Tong Hu, whom they hadn't seen in a long time, was already waiting for them. "The head is hosting the exam personally. Why do they have to be so serious? I feel a little nervous," everyone muttered in low voices. "Let's go to the 5th floor, Tong Hu said immediately. Wang Teng was surprised. The 5th floor wasn't open to the general public during normal times. Yet, they actually opened it now. When they reached the 5th floor, he felt a little confused. The scene in front was completely different from what he imagined. He saw a long corridor first. There were similar rooms along both sides of the corridor. At the moment, the doors were closed tightly. Also, the interval was small, so one could tell that the space inside was extremely limited. "This is the virtual combat chamber." Tong Hu astounded everyone when he opened his mouth. Virtual combat chamber. Would it be like the virtual equipment in movies? I don't think so. Has our technology progressed to that stage? I've never heard of it. If virtual equipment is available, does that mean that they can invent virtual games? Everyone started discussing in hushed voices. This was a massive piece of news to them. Many people were greatly curious. They stared at the small rooms as though they wanted to bore a hole through the walls with their eyes. Your guess is right. This is the kind of virtual equipment you are thinking about. Currently, this still belongs to Battle Resources. Thus, it's not available to the public, Tong Hu said. So it's true. Wang Teng was amazed. However, he couldn't help but frown. How far has our technology progressed? It looks like the public can't get in touch with many things. Please don't tell the public about this. If not, you will be heavily punished. Only the top few universities in the world have this kind of facility. You should feel fortunate. Once the time is right, the country will disseminate it on a small scale. It shouldn't be too far away, Tonghu said. They are so strict. Everyone felt anxious. But, at the same time, they were excited to try the device. All right, let's not waste any time. Each of you can pick a room and enter. You can choose your level of difficulty and your location. The computer will give an overall score based on your performance, Tonghu said. There are different difficulty levels and locations. Wow, it looks fun. The students were pleasantly surprised. They chose a room and entered. They seemed to have forgotten that this was an exam. Instead, they treated it like a game. These young fellows seem very happy. I hope that they won't cry later. Tonghu couldn't help but snigger evilly. He turned to the instructors and said, "Let's go to the main control room to look at their performances." The main control room was at the end of the corridor. It was a huge room with screens attached to the entire wall. Currently, different images were being displayed. There were deserts, grasslands, and even the sea. The students had already entered the virtual rooms and started their examination. After Wang Ting entered the room, he noticed that the space inside was indeed minimal. There was only a huge silver-white gaming chamber device inside the room. Please enter your identification details and wear the sensor helmet before entering the virtual chamber, a robotic voice reminded him. The voice had startled him. He entered his student identification number and wore the helmet that was placed at the side. Then, he entered the virtual chamber. In position. Wang Teng, welcome to the Immortal Dragon 08 virtual chamber. Chamber door closing. Entering the nerves. Collecting physical data. Collection completed. Entering the virtual world. Wang Teng's vision turned black, and his world seemed to be spinning. The scene in front of him changed instantly. There was emptiness all around him. Huge stars were circling in space, and the Milky Way hung in the distance. It looked like a real universe. Wang Teng was speechless. To be honest, he was mind-blown. He understood how powerful technology was now. He lowered his head to take a look and noticed that he was floating. He touched his body and face. They undoubtedly felt real. Even his expression felt the same. This feels so real. Technology didn't decline. Instead, there's a huge leap. The robotic voice sounded. Wang Ting, nice to meet you. Welcome to the virtual world. Please choose your virtual landscape. Why does this voice sound like an AI? Wang Teng was stunned once again. After the voice was heard, different landscapes appeared in front of him as though he was looking at the flowers while passing on horseback. They flashed past hurriedly. I'll choose the grassland. Wang Teng casually chose one. The grassland location is confirmed. Please choose the difficulty level. There were 5 different difficulty levels: beginner stage, intermediate stage, advanced stage, nightmare, and even hell stage. Hell stage is 1 level higher than the stage I challenged for the Jogong stakes. I wonder how hard this will be. Shall I give it a try? It's just virtual combat anyway. Wang Teng made his decision immediately. I choose the hell stage. Hell stage confirmed. Please be prepared, enter. The image changed, along with the scene around him. Wang Teng immediately noticed that he was standing in the middle of a vast grassland. The grass here was as tall as a man. This is a grassland. Wang Teng cursed instantly. Even the grasses on Earth that had been contaminated by force weren't as tall as this. Was this the setting for hell stage? But this is too real. It is no different from reality. If no one told me, I wouldn't know that this is a virtual place. Wang Ting was dumbfounded. But this technology is a little advanced. Is Earth able to invent such things? He wasn't looking down on the humans on Earth. It was just that the technology didn't match with reality. The difference was too vast. He felt that Earth wouldn't be able to create this device even if it advanced 100 years ahead. Never mind. I won't understand no matter how hard I think. Anyway, how do I play this? There are no instructions at all. Wang Ting looked at the empty grassland and shook his head. He chose a direction and walked forward. In his heart, he remained vigilant, though. No matter what, this was an actual combat assessment. He wasn't here to play. Chapter 250. The fear of being controlled by death. Someone chose the hell stage? The staff in the control room reported to Tong Hu and the other instructors. Hell stage. The instructors were dumbstruck. Oh, who is it? Tong Hu was curious. He ordered, move the live stream to the big screen. Yes. The staff shifted one live stream to the big screen in the middle. It's that brat. Tong Hu smiled. It's Wang Ting. Why did he choose the hell stage? Is he so confident? Even the top few students in our school don't dare to choose the hell stage. Haha, he's a genius. This is normal. The top few students had chosen the hell stage before, but they didn't dare to choose it again after experiencing it once. The instructors looked at Wang Ting in a daze. All of them felt that Wang Ting would suffer and were looking forward to seeing him in a plight. In the virtual landscape, Wang Ting was walking on the grassland. At this moment, he heard rustling sounds coming from the grass patch beside him. The sound got louder and louder. There seemed to be something closing in on him. Spiritual sight. Wang Ting didn't forget that this was the hell stage. He didn't dare to underestimate the danger, so he used his spiritual sight subconsciously. However, he immediately remembered that this was the virtual world. The virtual world was able to replicate the physical data, but he didn't know if they were able to replicate his talents too. Fortunately, his worry was useless. This is amazing. Wang Ting exclaimed in his heart. He looked in the direction where the sound came from, and a ball of force glow entered his vision. This is at most a 2-star beast. He sighed in relief secretly. He was holding a basic weapon given by the virtual world, a 1-star battle sword. Swoosh. The next moment, a black figure jumped out of the grass and pounced on Wang Ting. It was a huge rabbit. One little bunny with white fur, 2 little ears besides its ear. Unfortunately, the rabbit wasn't cute at all. Its revealed front teeth were like sharp steel thorns. If anyone got beaten, his body would definitely get penetrated. A glint flashed past Wang Ting's eyes. He didn't use his battle sword and punched his left fist out instead. Bang! The big white rabbit's head burst before it could scream in pain. It got thrown backward. It was dead. Appetizer. Wang Ting shook his head and ignored the rabbit. He continued walking forward. Tong Hu's eyes lit up when he saw this scene from the control room. Wang Ting killed a 2-star beast with a single punch. Why do I feel that his ability rose again? The instructor from Class 2 said. Wang Ting's talent is too amazing. The instructor of Class 3 let out an exclamation. The other instructors looked at Deng Bo with envy in their eyes. If they had a student like Wang Ting once in their life, it was something worth being proud of. Time passed slowly. Wang Ting took care of a few 2-star beasts and one 3-star beast. He didn't find it difficult at all. Hell Stage seemed a bit unworthy of its name. When he entered the grassland world, it was noon. Now, the sun was setting, and the sky gradually got darker. Half a day has passed, Wang Ting muttered to himself. He didn't know that only half an hour had passed in the outside world. At this moment, many students had already exited their virtual chamber. After walking out of their rooms, they started shouting and causing a commotion. Oh my God, it feels so real. Damn it, I can even feel the pain. I got knocked in the head in the end. It was so painful, my head is still hurting now. The feeling of death is terrifying. This is the first time I feel the fear of being controlled by death. Oh right, what level did you choose? I chose the advanced stage and met a wind element star beast in the end. It was only 1 star, but it's hard to deal with. I can't beat it at all. You chose the advanced stage? I am not so courageous and chose the intermediate stage in the end. The students didn't see the instructors, so they stood in the corridor and started chatting with one another. The atmosphere was very lively. This virtual combat felt like a game. They might die and could feel pain, but seriously, it was fun. Wang Ting noticed this too as he continued fighting in the virtual world. Even the pain is synchronized. This is unbelievable. He got scratched by a star beast accidentally just now and felt an ounce of pain. He was left dumbfounded. It's nighttime, and I'm feeling a little hungry. Is this the difficulty of the hell stage? I will have to continue killing star beasts until the exam ends. Wang Ting muttered to himself. Everywhere was black, and a profound silence prevailed over the area. Wang Ting had no idea how to progress in the exam. Wait, this isn't right. This is too quiet. It is strangely quiet. Wang Ting was shocked. He stopped in his tracks and activated his spiritual sight. He glanced around him. Hiss. Wang Ting sucked in a breath of cold air. Patches of force glows entered his vision, almost enveloping the entire area around him. He was surrounded without knowing a thing. Suddenly, little red dots started lighting up in the grass. They were so dense, as if there was a swarm of strange things. His hair stood up on ends, and his head turned numb. Hell stage, activated. F***K. Wang Ting couldn't help but curse. When you come, you have to come all together. I'm going to die. He clutched the battle sword in his hand. Force raged in his body, and his battle instinct was switched on. He was ready. Come on. Wang Ting decided to strike first to gain the upper hand. He charged towards the nearest red dot at once. Slash. He reached the flesh with a single move. Angry and shrill sounds rang out from his surroundings. Then, more and more red dots started charging towards him. These were large-sized red-eyed rats. They were extremely agile, and their claws were sharp. Their tails were like short whips that possessed unexpected attacking power. It was impossible to guard against them. Most importantly, there was a whole lot of them. This was a life-or-death situation. So this was the real hell stage. In the control room, Tong Hu smiled and said, "How long do you think he can last?" 3 minutes is long enough. 2 minutes. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. What's more, there are so many of them. 5 minutes, the instructor of Class 1, Deng Bo, said. Instructor Deng, are you so confident? Of course. Here's my student. Before Deng Bo could finish speaking, another instructor cried out in alarm. Look. Everyone turned to look at the screen Wang Ting was on. Their eyes widened. On the screen, Wang Ting had turned into a slaughter machine. He shuttled back and forth through the rats and killed a rat with each hit. Wang Ting was as fast as lightning, as every single strike was lethal. He was fast, accurate, and vicious. His attacking method wasn't flashy. Instead, it was extremely simple. This battle style seems a little familiar. Tong Hu touched his chin and muttered in bewilderment. The clock was ticking. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. The time had already exceeded the instructor's prediction. However, no one said anything at this moment. They were all staring at the screen in concentration. I remember now. This is the fighting style of our principal, right? Tong Hu was shocked. His eyes opened wide. Chapter 251, Death Pain, Pain, Pain. Wang Ting exited the virtual landscape with furrowed brows. He cried out instinctively. This was 2F*** king painful. Anyone who got bitten to death by a bunch of rats wouldn't be able to remain calm. Hell stage is terrifying. I wonder how many points I scored. Wang Ting relaxed for a long time before the feeling of pain subsided. Then, he looked at the screen. 93 points. Not bad. It's not too low. Wang Ting stood up and got down from the virtual chamber. He opened the door and walked out. Deng Bo and the other instructors exchanged glances with one another in the head control room. Even Tong Hu was flabbergasted. He found this incredible. He lasted for 2 hours. He actually lasted for so long in that frightening rat tide. This young fellow is full of surprises. Tong Hu shook his head as he wondered to himself. Let's go, everyone. If we stay here any longer, the students are going to kick up a fuss. They stood up and walked out. The students were gathered in small groups along the corridor. It was noisy, and they were extremely excited. Hu Pingliang and his friends gathered around Wang Teng. He asked curiously, "Brother Teng, what difficulty level did you choose? Was it the Hell stage?" Song Shuhang asked. I chose the Hell stage directly." Wang Teng was speechless. He felt that no one dared to even choose the Nightmare stage. So, was he the only one who chose the Hell stage? Was he too fierce? "You chose the Hell stage." Their jaws dropped when they heard this. They stared at Wang Ting as though he was some strange animal. "I knew it," Bailey Qingfeng said. "You are stupid, but I commend your courage," Lu Shu said. "Don't tease me. You don't know how tragic my death was," Wang Ting said pitifully. "How did you die?" The others instantly became curious. "I got surrounded by rats and got bitten to death by numerous large-sized rats." Wang Teng described his death in detail. F***K, that is so scary. Hu Pingliang and the others glanced at Wang Ting in sympathy. This was the first time he had experienced death. On top of that, he died so tragically. This was the real fear of being controlled by death. Their experiences paled in comparison with Wang Teng's. At this moment, Tong Hu and the other instructors walked over. The students gradually turned silent. "Everyone, how does it feel?" Tong Hu smiled and asked. "Exciting. Amazing. Fun. Head, can we play a few more times?" Tong Hu felt speechless when he heard someone asking this question. Did they think that this was a game? "All right, stop talking and look at the result of your exam. How can you still think of playing?" Tong Hu barked furiously. The students shut their mouths awkwardly. They knew that they didn't perform well in the virtual world, especially since this was the first time many of them were facing a star beast. Their actual combat was too horrible to look at. Some started fleeing in all directions before the fight began and got chased by the star beasts. The star beasts killed them mercilessly when they caught the students. Others would laugh their heads off when they heard of this battle result. "I took a look just now. 36 of you chose the advanced stage. Only 7 people chose the Nightmare stage, and 1 person chose the Hell stage," Tong Hu said slowly. "What? Someone chose the Hell stage?" Everyone gasped in astonishment. The Nightmare stage and the advanced stage were frightening enough for them. How scary would the Hell stage be? They didn't dare to think about it. Wang Ting was the one who chose the Hell stage, Tong Hu said with a smile. Everyone looked at Wang Ting when they heard this. While they felt stunned, they also found it reasonable. As expected. This was what most people were thinking. Chen Yang, who wanted to challenge Wang Teng, stood among the crowd with a gloomy expression. Why was Wang Ting pushing him down all the time? He chose the Nightmare stage, but Wang Ting picked a higher setting than him. "Instructor, how much did Wang Ting score?" he couldn't help but ask. The other students got curious after hearing Chen Yang's question. Many people wanted to test their luck. They felt that even if he chose the Hell stage, he wouldn't get a high score. Maybe 60 or 70. Or, fail. Wang Teng glanced at Chen Yang and shook his head secretly. This fellow was everywhere. He was pretty irritating. It wasn't hard to see what Chen Yang had up his sleeve. He probably felt that he would get a low score with his performance. Well, Chen Yang wasn't going to get what he wanted. 93. Tong Hu replied. Everyone. Chen Yang was thunderstruck. No one knew what to say. A blow. This was a huge blow. He was able to achieve such a high score in the Hell stage. How on earth did Wang Ting do it? Head, what about us? How's our result? Someone asked. You. Tong Hu shook his head. Don't even think of getting 90. There are only a few who got 80 and above. Most of you all scored below 80, and some even failed. I will not announce the results one by one. Your instructors will go through your results later during your lesson. After he finished speaking, he left directly. After Tong Hu left, the instructors brought the students down and dismissed them. On their way back, everyone was still discussing this topic. Wang Teng parted with Hu Pingliang and his friends. He went straight to Dan Taixuan's house. Why are you so early? Dan Taixian asked curiously. Dan Taixian had been staying in school to guide Wang Ting. Normally, they met after 8 p.m. Wang Ting had to challenge the top 100 students in the evening. He had already reached the top 48 students. He didn't suffer any defeat yet. Of course, when he came back after the holiday, he changed his method. He didn't publicly challenge the other party. Instead, he had a duel with them in private with the thought of learning from each other through a fight. That way, he had to stop his collaboration with Zhuge Xiaoliong. They didn't dare to get too wild. It would be a pity if they attracted the attention of the school and came up empty-handed. They discussed with each other and decided to start again when Wang Ting challenged the top 3 students. Wang Ting walked into Dan Taixian's house and asked, "Principal, you know the virtual chambers we have, right?" "Oh, you know about it already?" Dan Taixian asked in shock. "We used the virtual combat chambers for our assessment," Wang Ting replied. "How is it? What difficulty did you choose?" "Nightmare stage?" Dan Taixian asked. "Hell stage," Wang Ting said in frustration. Did Dan Taixian think that he should have chosen the nightmare stage too? "Ha ha ha, looking at your expression, you must have died a terrible death." Dan Taixian laughed at his plight. "Is it hilarious to see your disciple suffering a setback?" Wang Ting was speechless. "Your expression is too funny. You're really bold to choose the hell stage at your first try." Dan Taixian asked, "What's your score?" 93, not bad. It looks like the recent training was useful. Dan Taixian was slightly startled. Chapter 252, Dan Taixian left master. "Can we use the virtual chamber during normal times?" Wang Ting asked with a fawning smile. "I knew that you wouldn't come and look for me for no reason." Dan Taixian glared at him from the corner of her eyes. She continued, "Of course they can be used. The top 10 students in the school have the right to use them. I didn't know about this rule." Wang Ting was stunned. "Why do you think everyone is fighting to climb higher in the ranks? The rank isn't just an empty shell. There are corresponding benefits," Dan Taixian said. Wang Ting nodded. "Don't even think of using me to go through the back door. However, with your ability, you shouldn't have a problem entering the top 10. Get up there as quickly as possible if you want to use the virtual chambers." Dan Taixian paused before continuing, "I will be going to the Xingwu continent soon. I have stayed too long on Earth this time. There are many things I need to handle over there." "You're leaving?" Wang Ting was shocked. Dan Taixian looked at him and smiled. "You can't bear to part." "Can't bear to part? That's impossible. I'm a disciple who has no emotions," Wang Ting said. Bang! Dan Taixian gave him a huge punch. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "Speak properly." "Oh." Wang Ting rubbed his head and immediately became obedient. "I've told you that everyone has their own path to tread. I will not interfere too much with your path. How far you will go depends on yourself." Dan Taixian stood up with her back facing him. "I hope that you will stay true to your heart and not disappoint me." "Yes," Wang Ting nodded honestly and replied. She was rarely so serious. "But, if someone older bullies you, you can use my name." "I will whack him," Dan Taixian said fiercely. Wang Ting was touched. Although she had only been his master for a short time, although the testing at the start made him a little unhappy, Dan Taixian had been teaching and guiding him as his master, fulfilling her responsibility with all her heart. This was the first time she had a disciple, so her teaching methods might be a little rough, and he always got injured all over. But, this was probably how his master showed her love. That's right, it makes sense. He remembered her bringing him personally to the Crimson Tiger troop to seek justice for him. She faced the entire troop alone and didn't even give any face to the chief commander. She beat him up without any hesitation. Which master would do this for her disciple? Alright, that's all. Martial warriors like us have great ambitions. Separations are a common thing. Under the night sky, Dan Taixian had her hands behind her back. She sounded natural and unrestrained. "Go back. I should be leaving too. Take care." Wang Ting got up and looked intently at Dan Taixian before leaving her residence. Behind him, the house turned dark, and a ray of light shot into the sky. It turned into a rainbow as it flew away. Wang Ting felt a little emotional. He wasn't able to let it go as freely as her. I think I still owe her a meal for acknowledging her as my master. He wondered to himself. He was busy cultivating, so he didn't have the chance to pick up Force Chef attributes. He remembered it now. The next time he saw Dan Taixian, he must push his Force Chef skill up. I am Wang Ting. I mean what I say. 8 a.m. during the weekend. The freshman instructors from the 5 faculties and the heads were gathered in a meeting room in the administrative building. The results of the assessments from the various faculties should be out, right? How's the result? Peng Yuanshan glanced around him as he asked. The heads of the 5 faculties started speaking consecutively. This batch of students is not bad compared to the other batches. That's right. Their results are better than the first assessment of the other batches. There are many potential students. If we groom them properly, they will become the core of society in the future. The words that these heads were saying were different from what the instructors said to the students. If the students heard that the heads actually acknowledged them, they might cry in happiness, probably. As expected, when the instructors said you are the worst batch of students I've taught, they were lying most of the time. However, there's one interesting thing. The head of the Rune faculty, Sichu Jun, suddenly smiled. What a coincidence. I have an interesting piece of news too. The head of the Smithery faculty, Oyu Changsong, smiled and said. Oh. Sichu Jun glanced at Oyu Changsong in wonder. The head of the Dan faculty, Kui Heng, raised his eyebrows. A flash of astonishment flashed past his eyes. The heads of the Battle faculty and the Command faculty, Tong Hu and Su Jing, were puzzled. They wondered what riddle the other heads were playing. Can't you speak directly? Is it very fun to keep people in suspense? Tong Hu urged them. He was an impatient fellow. This boorish fellow. Sichu Jun and Oyu Changsong exchanged glances with each other. Oyu Changsong gave a you can speak first sign. Sichu Jun accepted the invite and said, come to think of it, it's related to the Battle faculty. For some reason, Tong Hu had a bad feeling. All of you should know Wang Ting from the Battle faculty, right? Sichu Jun glanced at everyone's expression after he spoke. Tong Hu and Su Jing nodded. There was curiosity in their eyes. On the other hand, Oyu Changsong and Kui Heng were stunned. What trouble did he get into again? Tong Hu frowned and asked. He didn't. Anyway, do you remember how he wanted to choose all the 5 faculties at the start of the year but got stopped by us? From the looks of it now, we misjudged him, Sichu Jun said. Misjudged him? Tong Hu and Su Jing were baffled. What did Wang Ting do that made Sichu Jun say this? It looks like Head Sichu wants to say the same thing as us. Oyu Changsong and Kui Heng looked at each other. Could it be? It was now Sichu Jun's turn to feel dumbstruck. That's right. Take a look at Wang Ting's result. The two of them took out Wang Ting's papers, while Oyu Changsong took out a pitch-black metal. It was the 100 forged black iron. Sichu Jun took out his paper too and passed it around for everyone to see. A few minutes later, the entire meeting room became dead silent after seeing Wang Ting's result. Such talent. They couldn't imagine where he would end up if he continued on his path. That was because no such talents had ever appeared before. Even if some talents were able to take minors, they could at most minor in one subject. They wouldn't have the time to take more than that. Tap, tap, tap. A series of tapping was heard at this moment. Peng Yuanshan was knocking his fingers on the table. He rubbed his forehead with the other hand as though he had a headache. What do you think? Share your opinions, Peng Yuanshan said. I think that we shouldn't waste Wang Ting's talent. There was still astonishment in Sichu Jun's eyes. He hesitated before he spoke. That's right. We can't ignore him. It would be his loss as well as our Huanghai's loss, Oyu Changsong agreed. It would be a waste of God's good gifts if we don't groom his talents. Kui Heng had the same opinion. Bullshit. Chapter 253, Force Chef Master's achievement unlocked. Tong Hu flared up in anger as he glared at the other heads. His bald head was shining brightly like an infuriated bald tiger. The other heads felt awkward. They more or less had some selfish thoughts, so they felt a little guilty when Tong Hu glared at them like that. Tong Hu, sit down. Fortunately, Peng Yuanshan opened his mouth at this moment. Wait, President, they want to pull Wang Ting to their faculty. You should have a clearer idea of how talented Wang Ting is in his combat skills. This isn't child's play. Tong Hu said agitatedly. I understand. Sit down first, Peng Yuanshan consoled him. Tong Hu could only sit down. But he still snorted at Sichu Jun and the others loudly to express his unhappiness. President, we do have our own selfish intentions, but that's because we appreciate talents. It would be a pity if we waste his gifts, Sichu Jun said. That's right. Wang Ting's talent exceeds your imagination. He only observed the lesson at the side and probably didn't spend much time learning the skill. However, he was able to reach this state. If he is able to spend more time and effort, his achievements will be immeasurable, Kui Heng said. Oyu Changsong's words were mind-blowing. In less than 10 years, he will definitely reach the Grandmaster stage. He might even become a Grandmaster in alchemy, rune, and smithery. How dare you think of a triple Grandmaster? Tong Hu scoffed. He obviously felt that Oyu Changsong was boasting to increase his bets. Do you think that I can't see through it? Do you think him stupid? Sichu Jun and Kui Heng found it unbelievable too. However, they wouldn't expose him at a moment like this. Old Oyu, this is a little too much, Peng Yuanshan looked at him and said. Not at all. President, if you're willing to hand Wang Ting over to us for grooming, I will guarantee that you will have a triple Grandmaster in alchemy, rune, and smithery within 10 years, Oyu Changsong sniggered and said. Amazing, so you did have this intention. President, don't listen to him. He's just boasting, Tong Hu yelled. Tong Hu, do you dare to bet with me? You will know if I'm boasting. Before Oyu Changsong could finish speaking, Tong Hu scoffed. I won't bet with you. Only an idiot will bet with you. Ha ha ha. Su Jing, who wasn't a part of this, burst out laughing. Old Oyu, don't think about tricking Tong Hu. He's a sly fellow. Sichu Jun and Kui Heng shook their heads. All right. Peng Yuanshan laughed out loud. He waved his hands and said, stop arguing. Let's maintain the current state. You can observe him secretly and give him more attention when needed. Now, it's better for him to focus on battle cultivation. The three heads found this unfortunate. They opened their mouths but didn't say anything in the end. However, no one knew what they were thinking in their hearts. Tong Hu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at the three of them proudly. How many people haven't become martial warriors? Peng Yuanshan asked. 8 from the battle faculty. 6 from the command faculty. 5 from the rune faculty. 5 from the Dan faculty. 2 from the smithery faculty. The heads reported the current situation. Peng Yuanshan nodded. Let the instructors follow up with these students. Ensure that all the students become martial warriors as soon as possible. After that, we can organize the students to go on missions. You won't be able to groom fierce beasts in a greenhouse. Yes. That's all for today. Dismiss. After the president left, the heads gathered their instructors and had a small meeting. The heads secretly reminded their instructors to pay more attention to Wang Ting. If he had any questions in his studies, they should solve them for him as much as they could. In the battle faculty meeting, Tong Hu said to his instructors, you must keep a close watch on Wang Ting. Don't let others take him away. He was really afraid that the other faculties would snatch him away. However, the instructors agreed with him and nodded their heads fervently. Command faculty. Su Jing felt a little frustrated. He asked the instructor beside him. Did Wang Ting come to our command faculty to observe any lesson? He did, one of the instructors replied. Why didn't he take our command faculty's test? Su Jing frowned. He came, but he left after seeing that we were having a test. I didn't take notice of it at that time since he isn't our student. The instructor found it hard to put everything in a nutshell. He didn't know that Wang Ting would cause a huge commotion in the other faculties. Never mind, I didn't expect that fellow to be so talented. Su Jing shook his head helplessly. However, you will need to take more notice of him. His command talent might not lose to the other students. Seriously. The instructors hesitated. Who knows? Have you heard of a person who possesses battle, Dan, rune, and smithery talents before this? Su Jing asked. The instructor was at a loss for words. They thought of Wang Ting's performance carefully and felt that this might be possible. Wang Ting didn't know that he was being specially taken care of by the 5 heads, as well as all the instructors in the entire school. At the moment, he was sneaking into the cafeteria of the school. Since it was almost lunchtime, the kitchen was buzzing with activity. Pots and pans flew everywhere. The sound of chopping vegetables, frying dishes, and pounding meat merged together into a pleasant noise. All the Force Chef Masters were swinging their spatulas like a swordsman waving his sword. Their methods of cooking seemed exquisite. The dishes tossed and turned above the flames. It seemed as though special effects were added through CGI. It looked exceptionally cool. However, these Force Chef Masters were all fat. At a glance, none of them was less than 100 kilograms. The kitchen of the school's cafeteria was a fatty's world. Could this be the price he had to pay to become a Force Chef Master? Wang Ting shuddered in fear. This was too scary. Wang Ting was in a dilemma as he stared at the Force Chef Masters. They looked like small mountain buns. The fats on their bodies wobbled with every action. It was full of rhythm. Their agility didn't tally with their figures. This caused Wang Ting to remember a certain fatty from the Jisin martial house. He kind of missed him. There were many attribute bubbles dropped on the kitchen floor. At the same time, as these fatties displayed their culinary skills, various attribute bubbles dropped from their bodies. Pick. Or not. Wang Ting gritted his teeth. Pick. Force Chef *3 Force Chef *2 Force Chef *5 Wang Ting made a huge decision. He used his spiritual power to pull the attribute bubbles far away and picked them up. Mind you, picking up attributes was a form of happiness. Happiness that others couldn't understand. Wang Ting might have been hesitant a moment ago, but once he picked them up, he couldn't stop. He was like an addict. Force Chef, 25,500, well-versed. Within a short moment, Wang Ting's Force Chef Master attribute advanced to the well-versed stage. Many culinary skills appeared in his mind out of nowhere, and different images flashed past. The unfamiliar skill gradually integrated into his mind. Wang Ting was finally not a newbie chef who only knew how to cook instant noodles and tomato fried eggs. Master Du is coming. He's going to show his skills again. A fatty suddenly shouted. His accent was quite special. Go, go. Let's go and take a look. The others were used to it, though. A few chefs who had finished their work on hand immediately gathered in one direction. Those that were still working couldn't leave the kitchen, so they felt annoyed. Master Du. Someone who can be called a master must be a Force Chef Master. Wang Ting thought to himself. He evaded everyone's vision and sprinted from one corner to another corner as he followed them secretly. This was an exclusive kitchen. A fatty, indeed right, there was a fatty here. However, Wang Ting recognized this fatty. It was the one who sent Dan Taishen her meals. He was preparing his tools and ingredients in his exclusive kitchen. From the looks of it, he was about to start cooking. The bunch of fatties squeezed at the entrance on top of another. They opened their eyes wide to stare inside the room. This image was quite a wonder to behold. Master Du didn't chase them away. He allowed them to watch from the door. It was obvious that this wasn't the first time this had happened. When Wang Ting noticed that Master Du was someone familiar, he didn't plan to hide anymore. He walked behind the pile of fatties, unable to differentiate who was who. He patted a random fatty's shoulder and asked in a low voice, "Mister, do you know what Master Du is making today?" The fatty turned his head and saw a skinny person standing behind him. He instantly glared at him. "Who are you? Don't you know that this is a restricted area? Based on your age, you should be a damn student, right?" Cooking has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and leave. Wang Teng, the muscles on Wang Teng's face twitched. He didn't expect that the fatty he chose randomly would have such a special accent. Was this fate? No, this must be a fatal attraction. I'm Master Du's friend. I came to look for him. Wang Teng's pupils moved. Master Du's friend? Don't try to trick me. I will ask him later, the fatty said. Don't worry. Master Du is starting to cook. Aren't you going to look? Wang Teng changed the topic hurriedly. It was tiring to speak to a fatty with an accent. Oh right, I almost got distracted by you. The fatty slapped his head and hurriedly turned his face to look in the kitchen. Wang Teng, is it my fault? Wang Teng shook his head. He didn't ask the fatty anymore and patiently waited for Master Du to cook his dish. He would know what he was making at that time. He's making barbecued meat. Wang Teng saw Master Du's actions and had an inspiration. He picked up some Force Chef attributes just now, so he wasn't a newbie anymore. He could understand what Master Du was doing. Honestly, compared to ordinary Force Chefs, the Force Chef Master's knife skills and cooking skills were more unique, detailed, and qualified. At the same time, larger attribute bubbles kept dropping from his body. Force Chef *15 Force Chef *18 Wang Teng's Force Chef attribute kept increasing. At the same time, his understanding of Force Chef got deeper. Force Chef attribute consisted of many different things. Knife skills, ingredients, side dishes, degree of heating, as well as the components that were different from normal chefs like the combination of spiritual herbs and usage of force. It wasn't easy to become a Force Chef. After Master Du finished the barbecued meat, Wang Teng had collected 62 points of Force Chef attributes. Master Du didn't look like he was going to make other dishes, so Wang Teng left immediately. He also picked up the attributes dropped by the Force Chefs outside before leaving. That was another 58 points of Force Chef attributes. Force Chef, 145 500, well versed, Master Du, someone was looking. The fatty wanted to tell on Wang Teng, but when he turned around, Wang Teng was already gone. The next few days, Wang Teng would sneak into the kitchen to pick up attributes during meal times. The improvement was great. Force Chef, May 2000, Master. Who would have thought that Wang Teng transformed from a newbie into a Force Chef Master within a few days? He even stole the recipes of many masters. With knowledge, he wasn't timid anymore. When he met Dan Taishen next time, he would make sure she wouldn't look down on his culinary skills. At this moment, Wang Teng was walking into his classroom with Hu Pingliang and his friends. They had one actual combat lesson in the afternoon. Wang Teng hadn't come for lessons for a long time. He would either go to other faculties or the actual combat training building to pick up attributes. If he continued disappearing, the instructors would turn crazy from agitation. Hu Pingliang and his friends told him that the instructors thought he had betrayed them and went to other faculties. When they saw Wang Teng, someone shouted, "Chen Yang, 1 month has passed. Didn't you say that you want to challenge Wang Teng?" Chen Yang's face turned green again. 1 month ago, he thought that he would be able to become a 2-star soldier-level martial warrior with the help of the school and his family's resources. Then, he would practice one force battle technique until the big achievement stage. After all that, he would have the confidence to defeat Wang Teng. However, 1 month had passed, yet he was still stuck at 1-star soldier level. His force battle technique was only at the foundation stage. He didn't even reach the small achievement stage, much less big achievement. Damn it. With this ability, how could he fight with Wang Teng? That was the same as asking for a beating. Hence, he felt lucky when he didn't see Wang Teng for the past few days. He thought that he had escaped this ordeal. As more time went by, everyone would forget about it. Yet, Wang Teng came today. Also, some bastard didn't care about the trouble he might cause and exposed this matter the moment Wang Teng came. It made him awkward. He felt a little guilty and was in a tricky position. He turned his head stiffly and met Wang Teng's gaze coincidentally. "Chen Yang, when are we going to the arena?" "I'm prepared." Wang Teng smiled brightly at him. Cough, cough. Chen Yang pretended to cough. His mind worked furiously, and he had a sudden idea. He immediately acted weak and smiled. Actually, I want to fight with you, but I had some problems with my cultivation recently and suffered some internal injury. I know that you don't like to take advantage of other people. We can wait until I've recovered before having our duel. Actually, I don't mind, Wang Teng said calmly. F***K. Chen Yang's lips started twitching uncontrollably. He said embarrassingly, "You like to joke." "Ha ha ha, of course," Wang Teng suddenly laughed. Then, he purposely paused for a moment and looked at Chen Yang meaningfully. "I'm joking with you. Ha ha." Chen Yang laughed awkwardly. His tense heart finally relaxed. The students in class looked at Chen Yang with disdain. Chen Yang was feeling extremely awkward. Fortunately, the bell signaling the start of the lesson rang, saving him from his plight. The actual combat instructor entered the classroom on the dot. He glanced around and saw Wang Teng. His gaze paused on Wang Teng for some time before he opened his mouth and said, "Follow me to the stadium. We have something to announce today." The students were puzzled. They followed their instructor to the stadium and noticed that the other classes were there too. The heads of the 5 faculties were standing in front. Chapter 254, A Mythic Leading a Warrior. When all the freshmen gathered in the stadium, Tong Hu walked up and said, "We gathered everyone here because we want to make an announcement. It has been 2 months since school started. Some of you became martial warriors a long time ago, while some took a bit longer. However, last week, the last freshman also became a martial warrior. Thus, we will be proceeding to the next stage of the actual combat training. Martial warriors, especially the martial warriors in our military academy, focus on actual combat. If you don't understand actual combat, you will only be a weakling despite having force in your bodies. You won't be able to stand up straight. What's more, martial warriors with a lower level can kill you. In short, you are no different from being useless. I believe that since you chose this martial warrior's path, you will not want to become a useless bum. Now, the school will arrange missions for you. However, the missions are quite dangerous, so it's normal to have casualties. People are dying in every mission." Tong Hu glanced at everyone when he said this. He nodded in satisfaction upon noticing everyone keep quiet. He continued, "Some of you might have heard that martial warriors can also choose the office career path. These martial warriors don't have to participate in actual combat. However, we are different. Once you enter Huang Hai, even if you want to take an office job in the future, you still need to undergo actual combat training. Our school does not groom non-combat martial warriors with no fighting ability. Hence, you will have to go on missions no matter which faculty you are in. However, the school will not just send you to your deaths. After all, we want to groom martial warriors, not harm them. All of you are outstanding talents. Any death will be a loss to us. You will form teams in your class during the missions. Every team will be led by an instructor. If you meet an emergency, the instructor will help you. Of course, if you place all your hopes on the instructor, you will have a higher chance of dying. After all, there will be all kinds of accidents during the missions. The instructor is a human too. He will make mistakes. Also, the instructor will be hiding in the shadows, so he will be a distance away from you. He won't be able to save you immediately. You must understand this. Don't cry and complain that the school didn't protect you after someone dies." He glanced around him and saw that everyone's expression had changed slightly. All of them turned more serious. They were starting to understand the gravity of the situation. "I will also have to remind you that such chances are rare. After your freshman period ends, you will have to execute your missions alone. Hence, take the opportunity to hone your abilities. Alright, let's not waste any more time. Instructors, please split your students into teams and discuss the arrangement for the missions." The students exchanged glances with one another. They leaned close to each other and started discussing in soft voices. They didn't know they would need to go out for missions not long after becoming martial warriors. Everyone understood how dangerous the missions were. People could die. The head wasn't exaggerating to scare them or do something like that. Also, since they were martial warriors now, their missions would be martial warrior grade missions. It was different from the martial disciple actual combat they had experienced in the past. Many people felt nervous. Some felt restless too. They were a little excited and didn't take the danger to heart. The heads spoke a few words to their faculty. They seemed to attach great importance to this matter. After speaking, they left. Quiet. Once the heads left, the instructors came in front of their classes and scolded them. The student immediately stopped their discussions. Battle Class 1, come over here. Wang Teng's class instructor went straight to the point. He called the students over and started splitting them up. Wang Teng, Yuan Jing, Hao Zhangye, Hu Pingliang, Lin Shui, Xie Tong. There were 32 students in Battle Class 1. They were split into 4 groups and formed 4 teams. Oh my god, why are there more ladies in my team? Also, these are all students who became martial warriors recently. It will be a miracle if they are strong. Wang Ting gave a bitter smile. He noticed the problem at one glance. Instructor, I highly suspect that you are making things difficult for me. However, he could only keep these thoughts in his heart. He didn't say them out loud. To maintain fairness, we need to balance the strength of all the teams. Able people should do more work. Wang Ting, please take care of your classmates, Liu Feng smiled and said. He had noticed Wang Ting's expression and knew what he was thinking in his mind. Wang Ting felt helpless. Since the instructor had already made things so clear, he couldn't disagree with his arrangements. Also, they were all classmates. If he rejected them, he would hurt other people's pride. This wasn't what he wanted. All right. Wang Ting could only shake his head. It was not like he could do much to change the situation, so he had to perk up. Besides, with his ability, even if his team members were weak, he could take care of them. It would only be a little troublesome. This couldn't be prevented in a team. He would just treat it as an experience. A mythic leading the warriors. Hu Pingliang leaned over and teased him softly. Go away. You're so irritating. Wang Ting rolled his eyes angrily. Liu Feng only explained to Wang Teng, ignoring the other students' complaints. After splitting the teams, he said, everyone can go back and make preparations today. Bring the necessary items like your weapons, battle uniform, Dan, and healing medications. If you don't have them, go to the logistics department and exchange for them using your school credits. Your life is dependent on this. Don't be too stingy. You can earn the credits back after you complete your mission. Oh, right. If you really can't afford it, you can rent weapons and battle uniforms. However, you will have to pay the full price if it's damaged. Many students were elated when they heard that they could rent items. However, his last sentence deflated their happy emotions. Still, this was another way out for them. Choose a leader in your team and discuss the type of mission to take. This is your first mission, so try not to choose something too difficult. Advance gradually. It will be safer this way. Liu Feng paused for a moment before continuing. One more thing. The head didn't mention it, but the mission that the school organized for you will last for a month. 1 month later, the team with the highest school credits will have additional rewards. It might be more school credits or other things. This is a form of motivation system. The students' eyes lit up when they heard that there was a reward. School credits were good enough. This was the most direct form of rewarding their efforts. After becoming martial warriors, their resources would start depleting quickly. The school credits they had weren't enough at all. If they wanted to raise their levels quickly, the best method was to work hard to earn more school credits. A second ago, they still felt that the mission was too dangerous and weren't willing to do it. Now, their expressions turned firm, and they decided to do their best. That's all for today. Go back and prepare. We will gather in the stadium tomorrow and leave the school. Liu Feng dismissed everyone after he finished speaking. The other classes were done too. After they formed their teams, their instructors briefed them about the missions. Then, they went back. The students left the stadium in small groups. All the temporary teams gathered together to discuss the choice of their missions and how the members should cooperate. Some teams arranged a time to head to the logistics building together to exchange for items. At the same time, they could understand the details of the various missions. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.